Uneducated Economist here. We got 12 people watching with 2 thumbs up. Thank you so much for hitting that thumbs up button. By hitting that thumbs up, you will get the YouTube algorithm to spread the video around and get more people to join in on this live stream. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Federal Reserve speech given by Jerome Powell just yesterday. Simply titled Economic Outlook, March 7th, 2025. Now, very interesting inside of this speech, something that probably most people are going to miss. In fact, I guarantee you just about everybody is going to miss it. What they will focus in on are the obvious things like obvious to them, not so obvious to the monetary policy, but when Jerome Powell throughout this speech says 2% objective, 2% goal, 2%, what does he say? Our 2% inflation goal. He's talking in a way that a lot of people have interpreted and have internalized as a 2% target, as if the Federal Reserve is trying to get inflation to 2%, and that would be the achievement of their goal. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire speech. I left a link down in the description. What I'm going to do is, it's a bummer, these guys just started mowing the lawn as soon as I started the video. Hopefully that isn't too much noise in the background. I'm going to jump right down to the conclusion of the speech, because this is the most important part of the speech, is down at the conclusion, because he has this to say. He has this. He goes, "Before I conclude, I will note that at our FOMC meeting, we began our second 5-year review, the second 5-year review, right? This is important, of the monetary policy framework. We will consider changes to our consensus statement." And now in parentheses, it says statement on long-run goals and monetary policy strategies. So when he says we will consider changes to our consensus statement, he is referring to the statement on long-run goals and monetary policy strategies. This is important to note. And our communication as part of this review. The consensus statement articulates our framework for the conduct of monetary policy in the pursuit of our goals assigned to us by Congress. Now I'm going to pause there for just a second, and I'm going to take you to the long-run goals and monetary policy strategies that he is referring to, the consensus view, the consensus statement, I mean. In that statement, it says this: in order to achieve long-term inflation expectations at this level, the committee seeks to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time. This is their goal, the 2% over time. And therefore judges that following periods when inflation has been running persistently below 2%, appropriate monetary policy will likely aim to achieve inflation that is moderately above 2% for some time. This is the statement on long-run goals and monetary policy strategies. So important to note there is that the 2% goal is a 2% average inflation rate over time. And in order to achieve this, they are seeking to have inflation moderately above 2% for some time. That's the goal, with no statement on how long, how far out, anything like that. Just says some time. So until further notice is another way of saying that. Going back to Jerome Powell's speech, right? And again, we're jumping all the way down to the very bottom of this, into the conclusion. And it says this, continuing on, we will consider lessons of the past 5 years and adapt our approach with appropriate, we will consider lessons of the past 5 years and adapt our approach with, where appropriate, to best serve the American people, to whom we are accountable. Here we go. The 2% long-run inflation goal will be retained and is not a focus of the review. Bang! They have no intentions on bringing inflation down to 2%. They have all the intentions in the world of going for a 2% average inflation rate over time, with inflation moderately above 2% for some time. That is their goal, reiterated yet again by Jerome Powell just yesterday. How many people actually know this? Nobody. The people who follow the Uneducated Economist, I have been driving it into them. I will not let it go. This is exactly how they are conducting themselves. Anyway, that's the important part of it. I left links down in the description for both of these things. The fact that the Federal Reserve is not going for a 2% target, but going for a 2% average inflation rate over time is due to the fact that they are working on something called the make-up strategy. Now, I didn't leave a link down to the make-up strategy down in the description, but the make-up strategy says this: works best when the public understands, believes, and reacts to policymakers' commitment to offset misses in inflation from the 2% objective in the future. In particular, make-up strategies are most powerful when policymakers can influence the public's inflation expectations. Boom. Most powerful when policymakers can influence the public's inflation expectation. Tariffs, massive tariffs. Well, maybe not yet, but coming, definitely coming. Well, after we get done postponing them, definite tariffs happening. You see what I'm saying? All right. Inflation expectations. In doing so, policymakers face a dynamic tension. They must maintain long-run inflation expectations, the long-run inflation expectations at 2%, while at the same time moving shorter-run inflation expectations in response with the new strategy. There's nobody else who's going to break this down like I am right now. And it goes, this is farther in the monetary policy strategies of the makeup strategy. It goes like this: inflation expectations are more difficult to assess because they depend on the public's interpretation of guidance. An unexpected loosening could lower inflation expectations if the public interpreted this action as the Federal Reserve predicting a weak economy in the future. If the public instead saw the changes as simply reflecting a more accommodative policy stance, inflation expectations would be expected to rise. They use their words. They're using the mainstream media. They have propagandized it. They are pushing the inflation expectations higher, and it is creating a situation that is now working for them to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve the 2% target over the previous 10 years. Right here. Jerome Powell just reiterated it yet again. I don't know how many people, nobody is using this strategy incorporated into their investments, into their retirements, into their business. Nobody is looking at it like this. They are all missing it. I'm the only one. Out of all the rest of this speech, I didn't care. I could almost it was almost pointless to read the rest of the speech. The most important part of that speech was the conclusion, where he literally admitted that they are going to be continuing to follow the monetary policy strategies, that long-run goals, with absolutely no consideration of changing the way they view the inflation. What does he say? The 2% inflation goal will be retained and is not a focus of the review. So out of all those 5 years of having elevated inflation to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve the 2% target over the previous 10 years, that is going to continue. We are to expect elevated inflation for the next 5 years. This is part of the make-up strategy. They got to do it for the next 5 years to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve it over the previous 10. All right, moving on here. All right, we'll start here at the very top. We'll go to, all right, what is that? Florida Records? How nice of him. All right. Of course, buy silver, platinum, and crystallized osmium, but still haven't figured out what osmium is. Okay. I would simply dollar cost average into whatever investment you have. Nelson 357 says hello, everyone. All right, Kirk, it's the reason why stock markets do better under Democrats. Pump for Democrats, dump for Republicans, same old game. Well, that's not true. I mean, think about it. The stock market absolutely ripped under Trump's first administration, so that's not exactly right. Okay. All right. Oh yeah. Thank you. What is that? The Lee Crypt. Thank you, E. Thank you. Your bet. No problem. I'm glad you guys are here. All Nighter says, hey, hey, everyone. Tom says, hey, All Nighter Hider. It's so simple. Trump with tariffs falling into the trap. Yeah. People believe. Oh, thank you, Miles.
You're welcome.
Love you.
Love you.
Isn't that nice? No? All right. You guys got your coffee? Let's keep breaking this stuff down, man. All right. People believe what they want to believe, and Powell isn't going to correct them. You know? The system worked for the globalization system. Calling 9 on the dice. All right. Hey, everyone, hit that like button. That was dishes. You just brought me some coffee. All right. It looks like school is in session. Yes, it is. Winner, hello. Hi, dishes. Hey, all-nighter, hider. Oh, hey, all-nighter. Over 1 million homes in mortgage default, Wall Street Journal. UE in the house on Saturday morning. That's right. Thank you, Larry Bird, for being here. Nelson, missed payments are just that, trusty sales and what you want to follow. That's the sale of a house, not just a missed payment notice. Yeah, absolutely. Hi from France. Here it is 6 p.m. Wow. I was thinking about I was up at early this morning, like around 3. I was thinking about coming out and hanging out. But all right, when you are talking about inflation and eggs, you are losing. Okay. Lots of MAGA jobs, picking fruit, get to work. Okay. Everyone hit the like button. Nelson357, thank you so much. Tom, inflation equals higher for longer. Inflation has never went down. Um, well, that's not necessarily true. Inflation goes up and down, right? There's inflation, disinflation, stagflation, and deflation. There's lots of flations out there. Inflation is when you have ever increasing amounts of prices that are constantly going up. Disinflation means that you have inflation. It's just not going up as fast as it once was. So if it was going up at 7 and now it's going up at 5 and then 3, that's disinflation, right? It's still inflation, but it's just less inflation. So disinflationary pressures. A lot of ways to look at it, right? But there's been plenty of times where there has been disinflation, and there has been times of deflation that have occurred, and the Federal Reserve loses their minds when that happens. It's during the Great Financial Crisis, during COVID, during these certain times where where you have these brief moments of it, and they just absolutely pull their hair out trying to figure out how to reverse it. Because they are super scared of deflation. They're not scared of inflation. In fact, they look for inflation. They're trying to get inflation right now, right? Moderately above 2%. This is how Trump. Here we go. I mean, okay, mental gymnastics time, right? Because everybody loves it when I do this. Okay, so it's been like of my belief, and it's not just me who says this. Jeff Snyder, Brent Johnson, we've gone over this information quite a bit of times. We talk about the dollar funding stresses outside of the United States. Now, here's something that I kind of thought about this morning because I like to go into conspiracy theory mindset kind of things, especially the earlier in the morning, the more I do it. But here's a conspiracy theory for you guys when it comes to these tariffs, right? Think about this for just a minute. There's a situation in which that the United States tries to get dollars out of the United States. Like I know whether it's the banking system, the government, or a combination of the both or whatever. The point being is that the world reserve currency, being a custodian of the world reserve currency, you have an issue in which that you got a demand for dollars that are outside of the United States. So here we are, the United States, we're doing our business, trying to figure out what it is that we need to do with our economy. And then outside of our country, there is all these people who have written debts that are due in dollars. Now, there's a great Federal Reserve paper called Dollar Funding Stresses in China. Excellent piece. You should go read it. Talks all about this kind of thing. So ultimately, all these contracts outside of the United States are going to demand dollars. The United States has to figure out a way to get dollars out of the country. The easiest way to do it is by buying stuff, right? So running trade deficits, this is Triffin's dilemma, gets you to export your dollars and import the stuff, and this is essentially the position that we've had to take, being the custodian of the world reserve currency. Okay, I know that's kind of complicated, but if you kind of understand that part of it so far, kind of take this into consideration for just a minute. How is it that we continue to export these dollars out of the United States while at the same time running these trade deficits, making it very difficult on manufacturing here in the United States and all the other issues that come with it, with the labor and all that. Okay, so we have this issue here where we're trying to get dollars out of the United States, but at the same time we're trying to deal with the domestic issue at hand. Now, think about this for just a minute. All right, we put tariffs on all this stuff, like major tariffs. We announce it, major things coming, right? 25% tariff on Canada, Mexico, all these imports, China, everybody's going to get hit with tariffs. Counter tariffs get hit back, right? So now we're going to tariff them, they're going to tariff us. All the stuff that we export to them, all the stuff, right? The stuff that we export to them, they're going to hit it with the tariff. All the stuff that we buy from them, we're going to hit them with the tariff. So you got these tariffs that are going back and forth. Now, the tariffs that have been inflicted on the U.S. exports, so the stuff that we're going to send out of the country and send over to another nation, that's going to have a tariff put on it. The stuff that we are going to tariff, we postponed. You guys get it? We postponed that tariff. While they're inflicting tariffs on us, money leaving our nation, right? Well, at the same time, we were supposed to have things attached to their imports coming to our nation that kept more money in our nation, but we postponed that. At the same time, they increased how much money they are taking from us. You see how this is working? Like, they don't even have to do anything at all. They didn't do anything, right? You know, like the people ramped up purchases in a panic buying in an attempt to beat the tariffs that have yet to occur. At the same time, other nations are now tariffing our stuff that we are exporting, which is causing even more money to leave. This is like, I mean, you can't even really make this stuff up, right? You can't. This is what's happening. Like, it's not me trying to imagine it or whatever. This is what's occurring right now. I mean, you can go and read it for yourself. The meaning that you give it may be differently than what I'm giving it, but this is still what's occurring, right? Like, so you can give it any meaning you want. You can say, hey, they're doing it for whatever reasons or results from it, but this is what I am seeing, right? They hit them with tariffs that they didn't actually hit them with. They hit us with tariffs that they're actually going to hit us with. All right, let's read some of these super chats here. All right, we got $10 from Milos. Thank you so much for the $10. We got Justin, who with the $1 Canadian. Thank you so much for that super sticker. Who do we have down here? We got Happy Valley Farms with the $2. Thank you so much. FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt killing the markets. Yeah, it really is. All right, BP with the $5. So tariff mongering is also a tool to slow down inflation. I think it's a tool to increase inflation, right? Right? Tariff mongering increases inflation because people actually believe in the tariff that is occurring. Okay, so take it for example, like, it doesn't bring down inflation, doesn't slow down inflation, because I had a customer come to me who is a contractor who said, how quickly, how much, and when do you think that the lumber prices are going to be going up? And I asked him, I said, are you considering that for your bids going into the future? And he tried to say no, but you know subconsciously he is. This is creating a self-fulfilling prophecy to have an inflation expectation that is elevated due to tariffs. Right? So this is like, again, nothing has happened, but yet all these prices are starting to move up. We've been told by our steel company prices are moving up 10%. Hasn't happened yet. We got that notice weeks ago, right as the tariffs and the credible threats of tariffs were hitting the markets. We get this announcement, and I'm thinking, man, here it is. It's already started. The credible threats of tariffs, regardless of them happening, is creating an inflationary pressure within the economy. This is exactly what they are looking for, according to even what Jerome Powell was saying in his speech yesterday, reiterating the fact that they are pushing for a 2% inflation pushing for a moderately above 2% inflation rate. It's just like, it's difficult to see because they don't come right out and tell you. If they did, none of this would work. That's the problem with it is like, I even explained it to somebody the other day. He says, wow, all this stuff makes sense. You've shown it to me. Like, I showed him all the documents and everything. And I said, yeah, there you go, man. Here it is for you to use. Just go study it yourself. And he says, well, why don't they just tell the people? And I said, because if they did, none of this would work. None of this would be there. It would all fall apart. It wouldn't work. Okay? In fact, it wouldn't even that it would fall apart. It just never would have existed. That's the difference. It just wouldn't have existed. If something else would have been there. Right? All right. So they have wiggle room to lower later if needed. Love your stuff. Thank you, BP, for the $5. And no, I mean, to me, I believe that they are raising the inflation expectation to actually raise the inflation, because raising the inflation expectation is a self-fulfilling prophecy, much like the tariffs are going to, create higher prices so people ran out there and bought a bunch of stuff. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy. They are doing this to raise the neutral interest rate. By raising the neutral interest rate, they can get it off the lower bound of zero. So when they do lower the Fed funds rate, they will be able to drop far enough below neutral to actually stimulate the economy. And again, this isn't me who has said this. This is coming from the Federal Reserve itself. I mean, if you have become a member of the channel, you know this. If you don't know this, then you need to become a member of the channel. It's $1 a month. I have member-only live streams that we have done breaking down all these speeches. You can learn it for yourself so that you can internalize this information and you would recognize what it was that Jerome Powell was saying in the conclusion of his speech. That all the rest of it that everybody else was listening to about the 2% goal and the 2% what they don't say target, 2%, how do they put it, 2% over time, and they have like all these different names for it, but very rarely do they ever say like 2% objective. They have all these words that they use, but very, very rarely do you ever hear them say 2% target, because it's not a target. It's a 2% average inflation rate over time. Can also be described as flexible average inflation targeting. So yeah, you could use the word targeting if you want, but really it needs to be flexible average inflation targeting if you're going to use targeting in the word, because FAIT, flexible average inflation targeting, not fiat, FAIT, is an actual thing from the Federal Reserve. Okay? You can go look all this stuff up yourself. I didn't put the links to that in the description, but it's there. I mean, the information's out there. All right, man. Look at all these super chats. You guys are so awesome. Thank you so much for all this support. All right, Justin, thank you so much for the $5 Canadian. Got a lot of Canadians going on today. All right, do see support for tariffs against Canadian goods, specifically in your industry and workplace. Do I see support for tariffs against Canadian goods? No, I don't see support for tariffs in any way, shape, or form, not in any way. Like, we do not want to see higher prices as much as a lot of people are just like, I mean, they just assume, right? If you don't know, you assume. And so most people believe in gouging, like corporations gouging, retailers gouging, all this gouging. And I think to myself, no way am I gouging. I'm trying to keep my stuff as low as possible so I can actually get the sale. Right? So it's really ridiculous for, the idea of me, like as a lumberyard, gouging my customer. The moment that I do it, they just go right down the road and buy it from somebody else. And I know this because this is what I experienced as a salesman for 20 years in this industry. I do not gouge my customer. Nobody can gouge their customer. The guys down the road can't do it, because the moment that they start gouging their customer, I'm going to charge a hell of a lot less price. Because I charge a fair and honest price every single time a customer comes in. I don't even need to look at somebody else's bid. I'm going to give them the best price. I'm going to give it once. And that's it. Like, I mean, very rarely do I come back and say, okay, let me adjust my bid lower. It doesn't work like that. Not for me. I give you the best price the first time, because I got to stay competitive and I got to stay real. Now, when it comes to having higher prices or tariffs or anything like that, none of us within the industry want that. Or, I mean, at least not for me, not anybody I talk to. What we all want is a lot of product that is cheap enough for everybody to buy. And if everybody is out there buying it, I don't care where it comes from. Personally, I will sell Chinese-made nails if that's what the guy on the other side of the counter is wanting to give me money for. Right? Because I'm a salesman. I carry no prejudice. I don't. Like, do you want to buy American-made nails? You bet, man. There's going to be a higher price on that one, but I'll certainly sell you the Chinese ones or the ones from India or anywhere else, right? If you want the cheapest ones, I will go find the cheapest ones. Just don't complain to me when they bend, right? When they're bending over and they're rusting out and they're pieces of crap because you didn't buy American, right? But hey, not up to me to decide what you want, right? That's the customer's decision. That's all there's to it. All right. All right, BP, thank you for joining the channel. Got some more of you guys joining the channel. We got JDB3ATZ. I love the handle, man. It goes on and on. All right, flick the dice. I call lucky 7. You got it, man. Let's do it. Boom. Let's try that one more time. I don't think that was a good spin. There we go. That's a good spin. Farmers voted overwhelmingly Trump. Pick some fruit. What a pity. Yeah, well, again, like, I think the credible threats that are flying through the economy right now, very prevalent, right? Very prevalent within the economy right now. I think when we look back on it, when we look back, good Lord. When we look back on the on this time, we are probably going to see a lot of stuff. Actually, let me rephrase that. We are not going to see a lot of stuff that we are witnessing today. Like, it won't come to fruition. We will forget about it. We won't even be talking about it here in the next 6, 7, 8 months. Because think about all the important stuff that you had ran through your mind 2 years ago that nobody is talking about today. Think about, like, one of them was just like, even like the border wall right now. Like, my buddies were talking about grabbing ARs and going down to protect the border. And I'm like, okay, I understand there's security needs down there and stuff like that, but what the hell are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do down there? Nothing, right? You're going to down there and you're going to have your gun and they're going to tell you to go home, right? I mean, it was just like, it was just like, I mean, it was so driven in the media that they just lost their minds, right? Because that's how media works. Yui on fire this morning. Well, thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. What did she put in that coffee? Yeah, I love that caffeine, man. I'm all about it, especially like the first initial jolts in the morning of it. Oh, God. This is why I need to give it up. This is exactly that reason right there. Okay, good stuff. All right, remember to give the like button the attention it deserves. Yes, please do. We got 295 people watching right now with 86 likes. Let's get it up to 200 likes. Everybody go out there and hit that like button right now. All right, all those American coffee beans. Yeah. All-nighter, hey there. Got Brody up in the house, an all-nighter. All right, will water be more expensive? That's something that I always found very interesting, is that people's major concern over water, which is so legit, right? But I'm in the Pacific Northwest where it rains 9 months out of the year. Like, water is the last thing I think about as far as like a necessity or needing, because it's constantly coming out of the sky, right? But I understand, like, most of the people in the country don't experience the intense amount of rainfall that we experience here in the Pacific Northwest. So it's one of the things that I actually have to, like, internalize in a different fashion. Like, when I'm in Vegas, I think about that as just like no water, like, it's desert. Think about dry air, like, this is the type of environment that a lot of people would end up being in, and water is a absolute necessity of life. And I'm like, to me, it's just like, it's such an odd thing to not have water just constantly around you. All right, my God, but how are your people supposed to live if inequality continues to increase in a nation where the billionaires pay nearly nothing in tax rate? This has already happened in my country. It's effed now. I'm sorry. What is the name? Janine? Jemmy? Hold on. Jimmy? Jemmy? All right. I understand what you're saying. Here's the thing. You're not going to stop the inequality. You're not going to be able to change anything about the way things are being done in order to make the situation better. So it's better to understand why it's taken place so that you can position yourself in the best form that you can. For example, I'm going to give this to you. This is one of the things that I am, like, have internalized for myself as far as one of the decisions that I am making personally for what I am doing. My vehicles, right? This is a huge one for me. A lot of you know that I drive old beater cars. This is a 97 Chevy Suburban. It has 161,000 miles on it. I got a 2001 S10. I got a 99 Ford Explorer. These are my three vehicles that I own, that I drive. They run okay, right? They start up every day. They drive down the road. They're not the greatest looking vehicles in the world, but they get me down the road. Their transportation, they're fairly reliable. I carry three of them. Well, I own three of them because if you're going to drive a POS beater, you have to have a backup, right? So these are my three vehicles. My wife's car, which was a newer vehicle, blew the transmission. Now, this is a sad thing to think about, but we owe money on the car. The problem is that the transmissions are so expensive to put in these things that it isn't worth it. So now I am very much contemplating throwing this car away. Selling it for essentially, whatever you can get for a broken car, which isn't much. So essentially, you're going to have to throw this vehicle away. Now, I thought to myself, no, I should put the money into it and get it running again. Why? Why would I put that money in there? I can never get it back out. Like, the return on investment is essentially nothing, right? I have three vehicles, so I don't need the vehicle. I have them. Like, we have transportation. So the idea that I'm going to put money towards getting transportation that I don't need, right? See, this is the idea. I don't need that luxury. I don't need that newer car. I have the cars. They're beat up. They're ugly. Nobody's impressed by them. That's fine. Right? That's totally fine. As long as I have transportation, I'm good. The luxury of having a nicer, newer vehicle that was clean and pretty, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't serve me any purpose. And in fact, it's costing me. And if I wanted it, it would cost me even more. So I don't go that way. Right? Because that's the dive into luxuries. That is the problem that most people face nowadays. Most people would fix that car. They would dump even more money into it, have even more of a waste of money, because they don't have another vehicle to drive, because they don't trust in the idea of driving POS beaters. And I get it. I understand why. POS beaters breaking down is a very frustrating thing. That's why you have to be careful on the ones you buy, and then always have a backup, right? If you drive a POS beater, you got to have a backup. That's just the way it is. And this is like how I've internalized a lot of this information to protect myself. I could be dumping thousands of dollars into getting this vehicle running again. I'm already having to put thousands of dollars into paying it off. Right? To me, writing that thing off, getting it out of there, and still having reliable transportation is the smarter move to go to than to dump even more money into something I can never get the money back out of. Like, if I could dump the money into it and then sell it for what I put into it or what I have on it, then it would make sense. But at this point, it doesn't. So I'd rather just write it all off and still have transportation and call it good. Lessons in life, right? All right, let's cruise on down here. You got to do another updated video, how to buy a POS car. Yeah, Larry Bird, that's like, this is the thing. It's like, it's not like somebody says to me, it was just like, you can't just go out and find one of those beaters, and I'm like, no, that's not true. Well, it is kind of true. You can't go out and just find one. You have to be ready to get it. See, that's the difference. It's like, one day you're sitting there and you're doing your paperwork, and somebody says, I got a $500 car for sale, and you go, what was that? Does it run? Does it stop? Does it register? Does it, what's wrong with it? Nothing? All right. Yeah, let me see it. I want it. Right? You got to be there ready to go. That's the only way you can really do it. The idea that you're going to go out there and search of a POS beater, they come up. Like, you can find them, you have to be kind of vigilant about it. But really, ultimately, it's going to come to you. It's going to show up all of a sudden. Somebody's talking about it at work. Some lady's talking about, how her husband's, truck is still sitting in the garage and been there for the last 3 years. That's the type of thing that you listen for, and then you take advantage of. So, the idea of getting a beater, they're out there. This is a very, a lot of people looked at this truck and was like, dude, is it really worth it? To me, absolutely. 161,000 miles on a Suburban. These things go for 250, 300,000 miles if you take care of them. This one was well maintained and parked in a shop for most of its life. It's only the last few years that was parked outside. Now, it is kind of beat up and used for work, and so there's nothing in the back. It's pretty utility, but dang, man, talk about something to have for my area, like where I live. This is the rig to have right here. I mean, people are envious of this thing. right? Because it rains all the time, so I got big dry space, you know, that I can drive around. All right, man. More of you guys hitting that membership. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You know, that's really the only thing I have for sale. You know that, right? Like, out of all the stuff that I've ever done, people told me all the time, you need to come up with a course, you need to sell a book, you need to do all these things. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I really do. But I'm not like, that's not the direction I was really going with this stuff. Like, I really should do the course because I want to share the information. I really should do the book because I want to, again, share the information. But doing this right here, this is what I feel passionate about. This is what I really enjoy. You guys can see it within the video myself, my voice, my tonality, the comment section, everything that's going on with it. You can tell this is when I'm in the flow, right? And so having that membership to sell is the only thing, and it's for $1. That's pretty cool, right? Like, it's open to everybody. Everybody can do it. It's not like it's limited, you know? $50 membership for a month, that's a lot, right? That's a lot to do. And I very well may open up a $50 membership to this portion of this channel. In fact, it's already there. It's called The Collective. And I'm thinking I might break down the credible threat in more detail, even better than I have already done in that collective group, so that people who really want to fast track their understanding into the credible threat theory can go to The Collective and do that $50 membership, and I can break it down into maybe like 5 videos or something like that that you can then internalize the credible threat theory from. Because I feel like the membership video, like the regular early bird membership, I feel like this one has actually grown to a point that now we are like increasing and evolving our understanding of the credible threat theory. But it's difficult, I think, for a lot of people who are trying to learn it for the first time to jump in and then just learn it, you know, directly. That's where I feel like maybe I could put together The Collective, do like maybe 5 videos breaking down the credible threat theory in detail, so that it's really easy to internalize and understand, and then, you know, from there on you'd be good to go. I am so invested into driving beaters. I have a car hauler trailer. Oh yeah, my buddy has a car dolly that he just, like, I don't know how many vehicles he's hauled around with that thing. All right. If you are lucky enough to make money during what you love, in my opinion, you won. Yeah, thank you, Neil. And this really, I mean, there's times when this does pretty well, you know, there's other times when it doesn't. You know, I think about it now with lumber moving up and, you know, all this kind of crazy talk about tariffs and all that other stuff. It's kind of a gift to the channel, and that a lot of people want to know what's going on within the lumber industry. And considering what I have, you know, done in the past with lumber information in the videos that I have done, it's a gift to the channel. So, you know, I mean, it's nice seeing those 10,000 view videos, you know, 17,000 views. I had one the other day that got like 60,000 views. Those are pretty nice, you know. But for the most part, YouTube is a very volatile paying thing. It's all over the place, right? Like, some months are really good, other months it's just, you wonder what in the hell happened. Did they just, like, you know, get no love from YouTube algorithm at all for, you know, months and months and months? You wonder, it's just like, man, is it over? And then, you know, it starts to ramp up again. So, you know, it's not anything that I'm going to try and force or do, right? I have to put out the videos that I think are the most appropriate ones, and whatever happens, happens. You know? All right. You should react to Fed speeches. That would be interesting, and have people call in. Well, Danny boy, that's part of the member-only live streams. Is I break down these Fed speeches, like listening to Jerome Powell give the speech as opposed to me reading it. Like, that would be kind of a unique way of doing it, but the information's the same. So I understand, like, maybe retaining the information might be a little more fun or entertaining to listen to Jerome Powell and then me break down what it is that he just said and kind of go back and forth like that. But ultimately, we are still doing the same information by breaking down the speeches that are given within those member-only live streams. I mean, I could break down this one in the member-only live streams, but I think, honestly, I think the information that I have already delivered in this video about it, I think is the important part, you know. All right. Let me cruise back up here. We got Barney Rubble. It's all about making more money than we spend. That's what we have to learn to do. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, earn more, require less. right? We have to learn to live frugal and save as much as we can, like EU teaches, like UE. Um, yeah, absolutely. It's like earning more and requiring less has been very much my mantra. That's what I've been almost hyper focused on for years now. And if you were to look at like my material possessions, my personal material possessions, very little stuff. Like I have these beater cars, I have some clothes, I have a few tools, a couple of firearms. That's about it. That's the extent of it. Like you could pile up all my stuff, like easily put all my stuff in this truck, and then on top of it, the truck would probably be worth more than all my stuff. I don't have material possessions. Like I'm just not into it. The house, it's a material possession essentially, but it's an investment, an asset. I'm the only reason why I have it is because of my family, right? Trying to raise a family. But outside of that, like I really don't need anything. Like I need a view, I need a ribeye, and I need music, and that's all I need, right? And that's all I need. All right. Do you have expensive tools though? No. Nope. All my tools are left over from my days of framing houses, and I think like the newest tools that I have might be a set of Milwaukee drills that I bought, a couple years ago. Nope. I don't buy material possessions, guys. Literally, I don't. I am like I'm more into experiences and I'm into good food. That's it. Like that's it, man. Everything else is just like I buy Bitcoin and stocks and silver and put money into the house and stuff like that. But material possessions are like I can't even think of something I would want right now. Somebody's like, dude, why don't you want to go to get a good toy or something? And I'm like, what would I buy? Like a motorcycle or something? Yeah, fishing pole maybe. I don't know. I don't even do that much fishing anymore. All right. UE, Uneducated Economist, EU, European Union, yeah. Dang, that's nice. I wish I had more car tools to be more self-sufficient with my beaters. Yeah, it doesn't take much, especially on these older cars, you just need some wrenches. I mean, if you're going to start diving into, doing some rebuilds or something like that, where you're going to need to torque things down, then you need some specialty wrenches and stuff like that. But changing an alternator out or starter or something like that, for the most part you can just do it with a basic set of wrenches. uh, Living below your means was also very important when we were a producer saver nation. I had frugal relative live in the same house for 30 plus years and invested the excess into CDs. Yeah. And that's where I mean even the term something that I had learned as I started researching. I don't even know how long ago I learned this, but I learned that term coupon clippers, right? Like I've heard somebody say it the other day, and they thought the same way I had thought about coupon clippers, thinking that it was people who were older, because they generally meant like older people who would clip coupons because they would get a savings, right? They clip the little coupon out of the store coupon, go take it in and get a 2-for-1 deal or something like that. That's not what coupon clippers were. Coupon clippers were the people who had bought a lot of government treasuries because the treasury bonds had coupons along the bottom that you would tear off and go cash in. So if you bought a 10-year treasury, there would be 10 coupons along the bottom. Once a year, you would tear one of those off and go and cash it in. This was like a lot of people's retirement funds. They were coupon clippers. They would clip the coupons and go and cash them in. And that's like, I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense now. Hold on one second here, guys. My battery's about ready to die on my phone. Let me plug this thing in. Oh, stay there. Oh, you're just going to want to pull it down, don't you? There we go. Stay. All right. Oh, you're going to fall, aren't you? Stay there. All right. Man, even more of you guys joining in. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll do a members-only live stream tomorrow. Let's break down the Fed speech, just because so many people are joining in right now to be a member of the channel, that we will break down Jerome Powell's speech. It's fairly short, and And then I'm going to consider that for you guys. I'm going to consider the doing the collective, where I will break down the credible threat theory in detail over like the course of 5 videos or something, and then put it into the collective for like $50 a month or something like that. And then maybe try and, I don't know, rotate into that every once in a while or something to make it worthy. All right, Camaro dream is dead. No, it's not dead. It's just like the idea of driving a new Camaro right now and the amount of money that would go into it. Like, I even think of some of the things that have happened over the course of the year that would have, if I had the Camaro, it would have put me very tight. Like, as far as like the month, and making bills, and the idea of traveling down to Vegas and stuff like that, it would have made it very difficult, because again, like, the YouTube ad revenue is all over the place. Some months it's just like it feels like it just disappeared. Other months it does quite well. So when it's doing quite well and it does it month after month after month, then I'm thinking, yeah, man, I would love to get the Camaro. But then when it doesn't, and I'm thinking, man, I'm glad I don't have the Camaro, it reminds me, hey, the dive into luxuries is what's going to create the painful experience that has created painful experiences throughout history. And you know this from everything that you have studied within economics. It makes not buying the Camaro a little easier. But, if for some reason I happen to stumble into $50,000 all of a sudden, I don't know, I might go out and buy a Camaro. But I don't see that happening, so, all right. We need one long 9-hour, 3 whiskey bottle video on the credible threat theory. All right. Sorry, Eli. Thanks for sharing. Gold and silver. Gold and silver, everyone should physically own. So important. Winners prefer Mercedes. The only thing I don't like about, like, well, I guess it doesn't matter since it's a new car, but the only thing I don't really like about nicer, newer vehicles and stuff is the fact that you'd like, so, what was it? A friend of mine had a taillight kicked out or something, like some vandalism done to their vehicle, and like the taillight was like $1,000 or something, and I'm like, is that right? That can't possibly be accurate, right? That you're gonna be paying $1,000 for a taillight? And I can't remember what vehicle it was, but I mean, it was just like, Jesus, Rubicon? Was it on? Yeah, maybe it was her. Yeah, that's what it was. I don't even know if that's the truth of it. I mean, she might have just been like, just exaggerating, but still, I'm thinking, man, that sucks. Like that, like to have a part on your vehicle cost more than my whole truck is, right? Like, I mean, I drive a whole vehicle around for the cost of one line for a vehicle. That doesn't make any sense. All right, UE favorite genre of music. I personally, I like the stuff from when I was in high school. Um, I can't really get into the modern, the newer music today. A lot. I mean, some of it's okay. It's kind of catchy or whatever. But I'm into like, some of the older stuff from the mid '90s, mid to late '90s. Um, it's just around from that area. I like Red Hot Chili Peppers. I like Primus. Primus is one of my favorite bands. Um, some of the people you don't really hear much anymore. Like, I was playing Queensryche at the bar the other night. Everybody was digging it. Um, I like even the older stuff, like Grateful Dead. I really like, the older I get, the more I like the older, getting back into like the 60s and 70s stuff. Reminds me of being a kid growing up and my parents listening to that music and stuff. So, nostalgia. All right. I bought 50 ounces of gold and 1,958 ounces of silver last year, and I expected to go way high in the coming months. It's already worth 46,000 more today than what I paid for it. CD, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I personally don't pay attention to it on that fashion. I use my precious metals as an insurance policy. Or for situations much like the Suburban. Like, I used silver. I traded silver for the Suburban on a loan. So ultimately, the guy that had lent me the money, I gave him silver bars for the money to buy the Suburban, and I said, okay, I'll buy these things back from you. And then he says, well, yeah, if you need to, if you don't need to buy them back right away, that's okay, And I'm like, yeah. He started clinking those damn bars together, and he decided that he likes having that silver in his hand, because I don't think he's really ever had, like, a big chunk of precious metals like that before in his hand. So, you know, to me, it's an insurance policy. It's like something that you can use that has you outside of that third party claim. It also gave me the ability to secure a loan. I didn't have to go to a bank or anything like that. I just used it as collateral. So, there's a lot of ways that you can use silver that is not that of, like, trying to get the monetary gain out of it from the, like, basically the speculation portion of it. It can be used as an insurance policy, or as like collateral for a loan, like I did it. All right. Impress psilocybin mushroom if you want to impress someone. Yeah, I don't know. We got a lot of the psilocybin mushrooms that are around here. I mean, up in the Pacific Northwest, psilocybin cyanescens and semi-lancitas and Azarescence and all those other ones. I mean, they're quite popular up here, and you got a lot of people who who pick them and consume them, get high on them or whatever. And being in the area my entire life, it's like it's almost part of the culture around here that you just kind of know about stuff, and like it's just I don't know how you, it's just misspent childhood, I guess. I don't know, but it's just around, right? And so when people talk about all these benefits from like microdosing and stuff like that, I don't know. Like, I mean, I understand there's a lot of people who swear up and down by it. My only experience with it is megadosing, and it's quite potent. It's quite powerful stuff, and I don't see where the medicinal portion is of it. But I can understand that if you keep it on a very low level where you don't get high on it, then it can actually have some quite, some good psychological benefits to it, especially with depression and suicides and stuff like that. A lot of tremendous work has been done with it. I totally get it. But my personal experience wasn't like that at all. All right. Larry, my dad had 68 Benz when I was in high school. Cool cars, drive great, expensive to own compared to American cars because of the cost of parts and maintenance. Yeah. Just throw down the technical names. Oh, like so. Yeah. Well, well when you study, like, I studied mycology for a hobby, so it wasn't like, to me, like, to be able to hypomyosis what is it, hypomyosis lactiflorum, which is like a lobster mushrooms, Chantrellus cinnabarus. There's Pleurotus perigonus. I mean, there's like a million of them out there. And once you start to learn about all these different types of elites and stuff like that, you really start breaking them down by their specific names, because of it's just by looking through the books and everything. You have all these common names that people use for mushrooms, but common names can be like, is it that mushroom or that one that you're talking about when it says toadstool? You hear something of that nature. So being able to break them down to their actual name, their, what is it, botanical or scientific name or whatever you want to call it, their Latin-based name, it gives you a better understanding of not only the exact mushroom that you're talking about, but then also gives you a better understanding of the classifications of these different species and families of mushrooms that are out there. So, for example, like when I saw the Destroying Angels, which is an amanita mushroom, growing out in my yard, I knew right away that there were amanitas. I was just like, oh my gosh. So I ran out there, I looked at a couple of characteristics of it, went to my book, went to the Destroying Angel. Sure enough, boom, that's what they are. Had them growing, like this huge fruiting of them growing out there in my yard, which is kind of scary to think about it being like one of the most dangerous mushrooms in the entire world to have, like, literally right outside your door. But then it's also pretty neat that you can recognize and say, hey, that's what they are, and look at all the examples of it happening right here in front of me. So yeah, like, studying that for a hobby is like It's huge. But then again, like I'm in the Pacific Northwest where we have like, this is like mushroom territory up here. Wow, amanitas in your yard, so cool. Yeah, oh yeah, it was very cool. They're not like, I personally like Amanita muscaria, the big fly amanitas, the big red ones with the white dots on them, like the ones you see in the cartoons and stuff. Those ones are my favorite because they're this like the biggest, bright, vibrant, they're easy to see and find. So to me, like if there was an amanita out there that I like the most, I like looking at those particular ones. Like I like finding them. But finding those destroying angels growing in my yard was like an absolute treat. Like, because I had never found, well, I had found destroying angels before, but I had never found such an abundant amount of them before. It was like, whoa, look at all these things. All right, none of the mushrooms I find turn blue when bruised. Yeah, that's kind of one of the characteristics of psilocybins, but they're not the only ones that do that. Like Boleta celeri, which is a really odd-looking bolete mushroom, and boletes are like a tall, kind of bigger mushroom for the most part. They kind of have a big round body to them, and then if you flip them over, instead of having gills, like most mushrooms have like these gills that run from the cap to the stem, the boletes have pores, so it looks like almost like a sponge. And Boleta celeri is like the weirdest, ugliest little mushroom that you could ever possibly imagine. It's a black, very well, sometimes it's a lighter colored gray, but it's a black cap, right? So black in color, it's velvety, right? So it almost looks like, like velvet. It has a red stalk, right? So it's not bright red, but it's kind of this reddish green stalk that's coming off of this black cap. And then if you flip it over, it has yellow pores. But if you like take a little twig and you just run it across those pores, it will stain as blue as this cup, right? So you can like literally write into the pores and it'll turn like this really dark blue line work that you can put into it. Funny thing about those boletes celeri, zellery, I forget how you say it. Zellery, I think, is actually the way you say it. Zeller's boletes. Interesting thing about it is that they're an edible species of mushroom, and they're actually pretty good, but the oddest thing happens when you cook them, right? So you chop these things up, you throw them into a pan of butter, saute them up. As you're cooking them, this, I don't even know what it is, this mucus-looking slime comes off of it, and like literally with like your spatula, you could like pick up the snot string off of the mushrooms that are, as they're cooking. Eventually it cooks off. It all cooks away. There's no more slimy text thing going on with it. And the mushrooms themselves are absolutely killer. But to get to that point is just like, it's like very difficult because the mushroom is ugly. The process of like messing with it turns them blue. Cooking them is slimy. And then at the end of it, you actually have something that's pretty decent. But to get there was a little hard. You guys like the mushroom talk? All right. I got some yellow potatoes in the ground right now. Yeah, Sarah and Freddie dug up probably 20 pounds of potatoes out of the garden from last year. We kind of forgot about them, and they went out there and started digging around in the dirt, getting ready for this year, and they dug up like all these potatoes. So there was a few that were a little rotten, but most of them were really good. That's so sick. Yeah. All right, let's cruise down here. Love the mushroom talk, brother. Yeah, it's fun. Write a mushroom book and sell it. Yeah, oh man, I couldn't even come close to doing what like David Aurora has done or Paul Steitzman. Anyway, these guys have written some absolute fantastic mushroom books. I couldn't even come close to doing what those guys have done. Like like those guys are just off the charts. But it's fun to go out and pick and, kind of show off what it is that I do know about them. All right. Paul Stamens. Yeah, I can't, how do I say his name? Statements. I got a couple of his books and I've seen a couple of his videos too. He's out there on the internet. Trying my hand at hot peppers from seed this year. Yeah, we don't do so well with peppers around here. I think our climate around here isn't right for it. I want some deer meat stew so bad. I don't hunt, so I gotta get it from other folks that do. See, now this is where you go and you start figuring out how to process different things. See, like this is how I'm able to actually get fish, from a lot of people, because there's guys out there who can catch an insane amount of fish. But, you only have so much room in the freezer, and canning the fish is probably the best, easiest way to preserve it for a long period of time. So what ends up happening for the most part is that somebody who catches a lot or has an abundant amount will split it with you. As the person who is canning it up, you provide all the cans and jars and lids and everything else like that. They provide the meat. The person who is canning it up splits it with them, right? So you give them half a back, and then you keep half of it. You provide the cans or the jars and rings and lids. They provide the meat. So a lot of times, if you can process that meat, or especially when it comes to fish or something like that, learn to can. And then that way you don't actually have to go out there and get it yourself. You just find people who are really good at it, or like doing an abundant amount of it, and then you can trade your skill with their skill. And that's what my wife does. All right. It's too wet there for sure. Yeah. I don't think of that. I got a crap ton of cans. Haven't got a way to seal them yet, though. Yeah. Yeah. Just, figure that part out, and then, find people who you can, network with, and then do it that way. All right. How long are we into this? An hour into this video. How far do you want to go, guys? Should we, let's see, we're at 170. If you want to keep going, we got 288 people watching, 170 likes. I'll give you 5 minutes to go get that up to 200 likes, and we'll carry it on for another 15, 20 minutes. But I'll give you 5 minutes to go hit the like button. All right. Let me cruise back up here a little ways. I used to grow magic mushrooms, so easy to grow like weed. Yeah, Larry, I know a few people who have done it too. But like, I don't know, I'm like anything else out there, I'm not into it. Like all that other stuff, to me, I enjoyed the picking process, like going out and finding them, like going out and searching through the grasses and finding different locations and stuff like that. To me, that was the fun part. You eat a couple while you're out there, and you're all tingly and stuff, and you're out there searching for them and stuff. But that was like what a waste of time, right? All right. After this, check out Sal and let him know I sent you the link above. Okay. I'll have to go find that link. All right. The Oregon coast has the perfect climate for mushrooms. It really does. Someday I hope to hunt mushrooms in the Midwest. Hunting morels in the Midwest was awesome fun. Yeah, and that's one of the few that I've only found morels twice, personally, in my area. Now, I know they're here, but very rarely do I find them. I found them once by accident at a lumberyard that I was working at. I moved a pallet of roofing out of the way, and they were growing right behind it. And then the other time was out, I had a fire pit with the metal ring, and it was growing right outside that metal ring of that fire pit. And those were the only 2 times I had ever found morels, which, by the way, morels are probably in my top 3 favorite mushrooms. Probably because I haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to eat them as much as I've had, like, chanterelles. I've eaten 500 pounds of chanterelles. Like, I mean, I've eaten so many chanterelles. It's just like, to me, it's like, it's nothing special. Some people look at chanterelles and are like, oh my gosh, what a wonderful treat that you had to have this gourmet mushroom. And I'm like, oh yeah, chanterelles. Yeah, I just like so many of them. And like, my favorite mushroom is the cauliflower mushroom, and it's really odd looking. It's when you find it, it like in the woods, it's just like it's almost out of place, like it shouldn't be there. It looks like a pile of egg noodles, or maybe even like a brain, like like, I mean, not really a brain. It looks more like egg noodles. It looks like a pile of egg noodles. And the interesting thing about it is that they almost have a texture and somewhat of a flavor of egg noodles. And so you can almost use it in that place, like in like a lasagna kind of application for it, because it's kind of leafy and wavy or whatever. But those ones are really good. And I happened to find one of those last season, and it was good. It was the first one I had found in quite some time. So. All right. I wish I liked mushrooms. The taste and the texture are repulsive to me. Oh, that's too bad, all-nighter. I love them. All right. Mushrooms are great for bringing on what is it? Bringing on and some empathy and external crisis of not laughing till your stomach hurts. Oh, you're talking about psilocybins. Okay. Pretty sure Trump is going to drive us into a real recession. Maybe. You know, this video I shared is one of his What the Ship series. Moving back here down to the bottom. Okay, John, real money or value under the dollar is derived from our daily work and the value thereof. When this goes to the bank or to another product or service, that real value of the dollar going for reality? Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Real money or value under the dollar is derived from our daily work. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. Like, I think, like, really the dollar value is gained by the demand for dollar, and a lot of that exists outside of the country. So, you know. All right. I used and eat cream of mushroom soup. Oh, use and eat cream of mushroom soup on the Alaska dishes. Yeah, well, cream of mushroom soup is a must-have. Yeah. All right, 192 likes. Well, it's 193 likes. I'll give you 2 more minutes. I'll let you go up to 108 to get it to 200. All right, Michael Pinto gave a sobering interview recently. Yeah, what did he have to say? Hey, Greg. Are we done for the now? Oh, nope, 203. Okay, you guys did it. Hit the like button. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't listened to Michael Pinto in like quite some time. I really enjoyed his stuff when I was listening to him. And like, for the most part, I turned most economists off. I just, and it wasn't because I didn't like them, and it wasn't because I didn't want their information. It was because I was really trying to find this information for myself and not be somebody who was just parroting somebody else's content. Because I found that it was really Peter Schiff who did it, because I used to listen to a lot of Peter Schiff. And one day I found myself sounding just like him. Like, I listened to his videos, and then I would come out and do a video, and I was sounding exactly and using the same words and sentences and ideas that Peter Schiff was. And so I said to myself then, it was just like, man, are you actually doing this? Are you figuring it out? Or are you just parroting other people's content? And so when I asked myself that question, I was just like, well, let's see if you can do it without listening to anybody else and just going off of your own information that you were researching. So when I started doing that, I realized that as I was doing my own research and coming up with this content, that I started drifting away from what a lot of these other people were talking about, because a lot of what it is that they were talking about was talking points from the mainstream media, and the stuff that I was talking about was stuff that I was digging up from the Federal Reserve documents. And so as I was digging this stuff up and then listening to these other people kind of, regurgitate the same information, I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm just seeing it and I just haven't heard it out there yet. Eventually, these other people and all the other, economists out there, whether they're on YouTube or, on the news or whatever, would start, talking about a lot of this information. So I'm just like, well, maybe I'll just give it time and I'll just stick to my guns here and keep delivering the information as I'm seeing it. And the more I did it, the more I realized nobody else was doing it. And so I'm like, okay, well, they have their ideas and I have mine. And I noticed that their ideas seem to be the same idea, just regurgitated and told in different forms, but they're all kind of talking about the same thing. I'm talking about stuff that nobody's talking about, and then when they do talk about it, it is so dismissed of, right? Like, even just recently, who was it we were interviewing? I think it was like a college professor, some university professor or whatever. And He actually talked about the average inflation targeting, dismissed it, and then goes into theorizing about how they're going down to a 2% target. And I'm thinking, bro, you just said it. Like in the very beginning of this interview, this article, you literally said it straight up that the Federal Reserve was seeking to achieve, like they didn't say it in those words, but like was saying that the Federal Reserve was going for an inflation target that is above 2%, not the 2% target, but going for an elevated inflation. He said it, dismissed it, and then goes in to talk about how the Fed is going for a 2% target. And I'm like, what in the hell are you doing, man? Like, you know the truth. You stated it outright, dismissed it, and then go and spread propagandized information. I was just like, I was so taken back by it. I was like, I cannot believe this is happening, right? But then that's how it works, right? All right, uneducated economist. Oh yeah, I planned on going back to the lumber mill I worked at for 8 years. South Central Arkansas. Been rough for lumber down here for the last 3 years or so. Yeah, and I'm thinking that you're probably going to find some point here in the future when building sentiment increases due to buyer traffic coming back, right? Because this is the way I've been saying it the whole time. Screw tariffs, screw all this other stuff that's happening. Timber in, executive orders to increase the amount of timber production that's happening out there, which I thought was a joke. Anyway, all this stuff that's happening out there isn't the important information. Like, it's all relevant. Not saying that you should ignore it. It's all impactful, right? But the major thing that you need to look for, if you want to know if lumber prices are going to move up, is the demand that comes from the builders due to buyer traffic coming back. That is it. Anything else is noise. It's secondary, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it's not important, all the other stuff. It's important, but it's secondary to that. Buyer traffic coming back, increasing builder sentiment, driving up demand. That's the circle we're looking for. Right? Buy a used Camaro and work on it yourself. I thought about that. I thought that would actually make a really good video, or a good videos to make, is working on a car like that, a Camaro. So I'm thinking this Suburban's going to be it. And I was thinking having Freddie do all the twisting of the wrenches and stuff like that for the video. I think that would be fun. Buyer traffic, dude, most people can't even afford eggs. Okay, the bullet traders, I totally agree with you, and that's usually the view that I would have when I look out there at most people that I'm standing next to. However, there is a great number of people out there who are buying houses all in cash. They could really care less what the interest rates are, and they're willing to buy at this price. So now, here's the situation that we are now facing is the inequality is going to grow, and it's going to grow due to the fact that people are moving into property ownership and becoming capitalists, and by becoming a capitalist is literally downloading a cash app or Robinhood or something like that and buying stocks, dollar cost averaging into it, not moving into luxuries, not moving into fancy cars, not buying into, fancy experiences or anything like that. These are the people who are going to end up separating themselves from everybody else. That is going to take place. Now, the idea that nobody out there can afford eggs or houses and stuff like that, I think is a little disingenuous, and I don't want to call you naive because I don't believe that's to be the case. I think it's just looking at our situation as working class individuals saying there's no way we can make it. I totally agree with you on that. The only problem is that working class individuals will never make it anymore because you have to have so many other things going on. YouTube channel, blogs, online sales that you're trying to figure out, running Uber, doing something other than your 9 to 5 job, because you're going to have to compete against everybody else who's doing something like that with their 9 to 5 job included. So this is the problem that we are now facing, is that the working everyday average job sucks. It doesn't work anymore. It's not enough for the people out there, the people who are stepping up, leveling up, putting ever increasing amounts of effort, chasing excellence to try and acquire a little bit more than what their buddies are doing, who are just working their 9 to 5 job. Those are the people who are getting into houses. I know because I'm one of them, right? I was able to buy a house at the worst time possible in a city that is one of the most expensive in the entire nation, right? Having a working class everyday job. I don't have degrees. I don't have a business. I don't come from a family of wealth. I don't have anything like that going on in my life, but yet I was able to do it. So to think that you can't is not right, right? You can definitely do it, but you're going to have to step outside of the norm, right? You're going to have to team up with other people. You're going to have to house hack. You're going to have to do all kinds of other things, but it is very possible. And in fact, if you don't do it, you're going to get left behind. So figure it out one way or the other, right? And I'm not trying to be like, try to sound negative or down or putting you down or anything like that. That's not the case at all. We are here trying to figure out what it is that we need to do in order to step up and become better at what it is that we're doing so that we can position ourselves better for it. But to understand that our everyday average job isn't going to do it. It's not enough, right? Even a good job sucks. That's why we love you and the channel. Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that. What is that? Crypto Lojo? Crypto's Lojo? Crypto Slow Joe. There we go. All right. I told my young nephew about investing while young, and he goes off and take a loan out for a brand new truck. Yeah, absolutely, Larry. That's what young people do. So young people drive new cars. Young people party it up. Young people screw it all up, while they're doing it while they're young because they're young, they're dumb, they just don't know any better. Like I did the same thing, and it was those lessons that I had learned by screwing up when I was young that gave me the ability to do all this now today. So it's like lessons in life are repeated until learned. Some people okay, this is the difference inside of it. Like you might have raised your kids as absolutely perfect and there's nothing you can do, right? Like I had some buddies that grew up in some really nice households. Like their parents were good, they went to church, they were sweet and honest and everything with it, and they ended up being a horrible little brat with drug addictions and all kinds of stuff that ended up happening to them. Other people I know grew up in some of the worst households I could ever possibly have imagined, thinking they would never have any future, and they ended up being some of the most upstanding citizens I could ever have possibly imagined. Blew me away seeing this happen. Right now, you've heard this story before, you've heard other people talk about it, but when you see it for yourself, it's different, right? So now I think about some of the things that my young Fred, right, my youngest son, Fred, I think about some of the experiences he's had, right? Now, Mac is a little different. My oldest son, I don't talk about him much because Mac is very personal. Like he doesn't like being exposed out there. He's very quiet and shy and just kind of keeps to himself, and very much the artist of the family, right? Mac went through some stuff with me. Like Mac was there when we were at our absolute brokest, drunk, like falling down, like losing it, not knowing what it is that we were going to do. Mac was there to see that, right? Mac watched me build up the channel. Mac watched me do everything that I've done. He has experienced quite a bit. Freddie, not so much, right? Freddie kind of like, as he started becoming aware, the channel was growing at the time, so he saw the channel growing, but he didn't really get that experience of being like in debt, broke, not having anything, trying to figure out how we're going to get to work, the drunk experience. Like, he's never seen me drink before, ever. So there's a lot of difference inside of that. Freddie has a different mindset than I see other kids have. Like Freddie come to me one day and he said to me, like he has no problem spending his money on baseball cards, but he also doesn't have any problem saving money. He has, like, any given time, like if we go to the store, he grabs his wallet. I don't know how much money he has in it. Sometimes he spends money, sometimes he doesn't, right? But he's done things like come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, can I have $100 bill?" And I'm looking at him, I'm like, "No, you can't have $100 bill." But then he has money in his hand. And I'm like, oh, I see. You want to give me like $100 and you want $100 bill. And he says, yeah. He says, I have the money. I have, some 20s, some 10s, some 1s here, right? But I want $100 bill. So in his mind, he was putting these bills, like, 20s, 10s, 1s, concentrates it into a single bill. And I asked him why. And he says, well, I just want the 100. Now, he didn't really explain it, but I know in his mind, he was like, if I have $100 bill, I won't spend it, right? I want the 100. If I have these 20s and 10s and 1s, I'll spend those, but I want the $100 bill, so he would keep it. And that's exactly what he did. He had that $100 bill for a very long time. He was like really proud of it. He would look at it and stuff. Now, what I found interesting about Freddie is that We were watching a movie one time. In fact, it was Home Alone 2. Right? And I don't know if you guys seen that movie, but the young character in there, Kevin, who's like the son of the family, he accidentally flies to New York or ends up in New York, where the rest of the family went off to like Florida or something like that. Right? So Kevin's lost in New York. He's stuck in New York. And we're watching the movie, and of course, like, the young man Kevin, he's like, eating pizza, he's like traveling around in this fancy car, he's staying in this nice room. And Freddie, he missed that part of the movie where he was able to pay for all this stuff, and he asked, he goes, Dad, how come they're giving him all this stuff? And I said, Freddie, they're not giving him that stuff. He got a hold of his dad's credit card, and Freddie goes, oh, ho, 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 like that, right? And I was just like, what's going on, Freddie? And he goes, that's bad debt. And I was just like, you're right, kid, that is bad debt. He understood the difference between good debt and bad debt when we were watching that movie, understanding that the young man Kevin in the movie had taken his father's credit card and was now blasting that credit card on all kinds of stuff out there. And Freddie was watching the cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching happening there, knowing that it was bad debt and it would have to all be paid back. So now, that's impressed me. For Freddie being such a young kid to internalize the difference between good debt and bad debt when it came to the use of that credit card, and how it is that Kevin's behavior was going to cost a lot of money. I loved it. Like, that's something that you can't teach. Like, that's internalized into that kid. Like, I can explain it all day long, but the fact that he recognized it, that's all I needed, man. I'm good, man. I mean, he understands the debt issue. Now, whether or not in life he pays attention and does it right, that part's, that's like, well, that's to be seen, right? It's not neither here nor there. It's a very important part of it, but it's to be seen. But the fact is that he recognized that at a young age. So if he does experience the pain of going into debt for a luxurious item, he will know exactly why he's experiencing that pain. He won't be blaming nobody but himself, and he knows why. All right, the kid levered a good time. Yeah, my son watches me when I check my stocks. He's only 5. He calls it making, what is it? Making hills. Huh. If we make big hill, we get lots of money. Oh, very good. Oh, making hills because of the chart graph running up. That's cute. I like it. All right, beware the margin call. Yeah. You can open an account for him when he's 13. Yeah, no, I plan on it. Macaulay Culkin, yep. Trump was in Home Alone. Was he? I am partial to 50s, so I like to keep 50s, so I'm less apt to spend them. Yeah, that's a good way of going about it. I used to keep like all my $5 bills. Like, if I came across a $5 bill, like, it would become mine and that was it. I would just hold on to it. And so I had a stash of $5 bills like you wouldn't believe. And then eventually I was just like, okay, this is ridiculous having all these fives. All right, my nephew stacks gold and silver. Good for him. That's a good one for young kids. Freddie stacks it too. He buys coins. He will buy coins every once in a while. Like, if he goes to the coin store, he'll pick up some old ones. But he's really into the silver coinage now. So occasionally, and it was funny because I haven't seen it happen in quite some time. But right after Freddie started looking at coins and started, like, playing around with coin collecting and stuff like that, I had 2 different silver coins pop up in the change at work. So he was quite excited for me to come home with a silver quarter for him and then a silver dime. So he was super excited to see those. And so, yeah, he's collecting his own silver. And then we had a viewer here on the channel send him some of the Queen's Beasts, which are some 2-ounce silver bullion, which are absolutely some of the most beautiful coins you can ever imagine. So we have a few of those, and that's part of his collection as well. In debt we trust, yeah. All right, the government owns the land your home sits on. That became lifelong debt, and the majority will never own cash producing assets like a fourplex. Single family homes are not investment but liability. Well, I would agree with that, the bullet traders, except that right now I could move out of my house and rent it out and probably cash flow $400 to $500 a month. I mean, I don't know if that's good, but like to me that seems pretty damn good. I don't know. All right. I mean, but like to me that seems pretty decent for a property that I bought 2, 3 years ago that I'm living in, right? So once I move out of this thing, I'm very much considering that I'm going to rent it out, for, the rest of my life, unless, Freddie wants to buy it or something like that. And then in that case, I'll probably make him a hell of a good deal on it. But something of that, of that is going to take place with this house. I find it to be already like one of the best financial decisions that I had ever made. At the time, I didn't think it was. I thought it was one of the worst. It turned out to be one of the best. Very much. That's why I had to change everything that I was feeling in understanding about the mortgage market and the interest rates and the Federal Reserve and how it is that they are conducting themselves. And if I had understood my position better, I wouldn't have fallen for the mainstream propagandized information like everybody else was doing, believing that when the Fed raised rates, property prices would crash. Right? This is something that, like, even today, people are saying it, and it didn't happen. Right? Like, it's not happening, and I'll get arguments from all kinds of people out there. That's great. I'm looking at my own personal view right here with my own home that I could not buy today. Right? Like, I could not buy my own home, not at the interest rates and not at the price that I could sell it for. So this is like a very telling sign of the times that there is a separation happening. The inequality has taken place, and being a property owner for a very short time that I have has definitely propelled me up onto a, further away from the poverty-stricken level that I was living at. Right? It's like I can't find anything else out there that is going to create the inequality as much as property ownership and capitalism will, right? And the fact that we have our opportunity to get into both of those things, right? Like, broke ass dude, nothing going on, 40 years old, no degree, no money, no family wealth, no business, nothing going on, was able to do it. Now, again, I know a lot of people are going to say we can't all have a YouTube channel. I worked the YouTube channel like it was a second job. So, yeah, that's what it's going to take. Ever increasing amounts of work beyond that of your double W-2, right? That's what it takes. That's what it took for me, right? And, I don't know what else. I don't know what everybody else is going to do. All right, we got $5 from Jared. Thank you so much. Hi from Idaho. Right on. Up here in the Pacific Northwest yourself. All right, long-time listener, love the information. Idaho housing is crazy. It really is. It's a very unique place. From a cost to home being built, any thoughts on the Idaho's market? I mean, I couldn't tell you about any one specific market outside of the one that I am in because this is the one that I am looking at closely. Somebody who is much more into real estate, into understanding the housing market in that fashion, that there is many housing markets that are spread across this country, and that, to look at one general place as opposed to another is going to have so many, unique characteristic differences between the two of them, not only from the location but the style of, property ownership there, the industries that are around it. Like for me up here in my area, we got a huge hospital district that's growing, retirement community that's growing, remote workers that is growing. Understand that like some parts in Idaho might experience like the remote worker, but they may not have like a growing hospital district, but instead have a growing industry of some other sorts that's going to create a different type of property ownership to that area. So in my area here, we have property ownership going to people who are willing to pay a freaking hell of a lot for a home, driving the home prices to stupid high numbers, so high that you can't even buy a home and rent it out. That's not even a feasible thing to do anymore. So rental properties here are just, rents out, incredibly high. It's just like it's a ridiculous area to try and compare to say places in Texas or something of that nature, it would be completely different. So you really have to just kind of understand your market for itself. But yeah, I heard a lot of craziness going on in the Idaho market, driving prices to record astronomical highs. Okay. Now it's a bad time to buy property in a big city. I mean, people said it was a bad time to buy when I bought. It was the best time to buy. It was like, in fact, you couldn't have found a better time to buy, considering I mean, I could have gotten a slightly better interest rate, but I don't think I could have timed the exponential rise any better, because as soon as I bought my house, boom, the prices started skyrocketing. Like, as soon as I bought it, it was like almost as if somebody flipped a switch the day I bought the house. And to watch it go as dramatically high as it did, only to fall quite substantially to the level that it's at now. Even the dramatic rise in the insane amount that came out of it still leaves it at $50,000 more, like well over 10% more than what I had paid for it 3 years ago, right? And considering that I put 10% down on the house, like I have a massive amount of equity in this house now. It's like it's so far from being underwater that like it's the best decision I had ever made. But if you go back and you look at the videos that I was doing talking about buying the house at the time, just go through the comments, talk about anxiety ridden. Oh God, and it was horrible. Like I didn't know what to do. Like I was losing my mind at the time, thinking, okay, that's it. I'm just preparing myself to go underwater. Just think, okay, you are going to buy a house and you are going to watch it go underwater, and you are going to be purchasing an asset that is not worth as much as you could sell it for. I thought that was to be the case. Nothing could have been further from the truth. It did exactly opposite of that, So I guess like kind of accepting it and just being okay with it and letting it go gave the universe the ability to then say, here, man, much better opportunity for you because you let it go. That's the key to it all. I don't know if anybody realizes that the key to having anything in your life is to literally let go of it. Let go of the idea of it, let go of having it, let go of everything about it, and just live as if it has already occurred, right? Carry the energy as if it's already happened. And that it's just, you're literally waiting for things to line up to show evidence of it, right? But it's already taken place. See, I think about it as being a YouTuber, right? People say, man, it's so awesome. How did you get it? How did you build it? You're so good at this. And man, and I'm thinking, good at what? Sitting in my car, talking on the phone? I mean, it's just like, what do you have to be good at? Right? Turning the thing on, hitting record. Right? It's just like, coming out here and doing videos is very natural feeling for me. I don't even think about it. It just comes pouring out, right? Now, the very first video I had ever done was a little difficult. Now, it was an easy video because it was an introductory video, but after that, once I uploaded the video, I was like, man, what am I going to do? How do I put out videos? What kind of content am I going to do? Why am I even doing this if nobody's going to watch, right? And I had all this stuff that I was thinking about, and I thought, well, just put out another video, put out another video, put out another video. I didn't think about anything else other than put out another video and make it so that it's something that you would want to watch, right? Think about it like your own personal journal or something of that nature. And so that's what I did. And I kept putting out videos, and the videos caught on, and people were subscribing and commenting and encouraging, and then all the support and, all, like, before it was even monetized, I had no monetization going on the videos or at all. People were like PayPaling, here's some PayPal money, here's some Venmo money, man, here's all the support. It's awesome. It's like, I'm feeling like a real YouTuber, and I'm like, what the hell's going on, right? And so I just kept going and kept making the videos and kept putting out the content and just kept growing and kept growing and kept growing. And I look back on it and I think to myself, man, I'm an actual YouTuber. When did that happen? The day I put out that first video. That's when I became a YouTuber. See, it was already there the entire time from the very first video. The moment that I grabbed my phone and I started walking down to my car to make that video, I was the YouTuber. I became a YouTuber. I hadn't even put out a video yet. Right? See, this is the thing. This is how you manifest things into your reality. This is how you make the universe line up to the things that you are wanting and feeling, is that you have to be it. You have to be the YouTuber. Before YouTube knows it, you have to know it. You are it. And you go down and you make the introductory video and you upload it, and that's the day you become a YouTuber. Right? And so it's already in you the entire time. Think about it there's another way of kind of understanding this. Imagine that somebody has given you some scratches for your birthday, and you scratch it off and you win $10,000, and you think for sure that you've won $10,000. You have it all in your mind, what you're going to do with this $10,000. It's there. You have this feeling that's generated of awesomeness that's because of this $10,000. It's all there, and you have this awesomeness feeling that is just going on. You're like, man, this is great. All right? And then you realize that it was a fake. And they were just joking, playing a prank on you, which is one of the worst pranks that you could ever do, so don't do that to anybody. But for this example, we're talking about this, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's all gone. Oh, it was never there to begin with, but the feeling was, right? That elevated feeling of having that money was there. If you can maintain that feeling as if it was always there, right? It may not have been the lottery. It wasn't this external thing. I have it flowing to me. It's everywhere, right? All the time, constantly. If you just think about it in that fashion and you don't question it, then things just start lining up to occur that way. But if you feel, no, it's distance, it's hard, it's always fleeting away, it's always difficult, right? Then that's exactly what it'll be. It'll be that way. And so understanding that everything is about the feelings and thoughts and understandings that you are carrying. Right? If you feel that it is difficult, the external world will provide you with a difficult time. But if you feel that it's easy, that there's nothing to it, not hard at all, it's all flowing, it's all natural, it's all part of the game, it's all part of the adventure, right? Then things just naturally occur. It just happens for you. I always dreamed of the day that I would get to meet G. Edward Griffin. I always dreamed of the day that I would get to meet Ron Paul, right? I always dreamed of the day that I'd be on stage speaking to people, sharing my thoughts and ideas. One day, I got to share the same stage and speak to the same audience as some of the people that I feel were heroes in my life. How in the hell did that happen? Like, I didn't do it. I didn't pursue it. I didn't go and ask to go and speak, at the same event that G. Edward Griffin was speaking at. I didn't ask to go and speak to the same audience on the same day that Ron Paul was going to come and speak to the audience. I didn't ask for any of that stuff. It all showed up. I was given opportunity. Hey, you want to do this? Whoa, that's heavy. Hell yeah, I want to do it. I don't know if I can, right? But I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna stumble my way through it, and nothing else, right? Because once you're given opportunity, you can't deny that. You got to go with that opportunity, no matter how much it scares you, right? Because the universe has just lined it up. I didn't go and look for it. It just all of a sudden one day I was like, hey man, do you want to go speak on stage? Yeah, I guess. Cool, because it's going to be the same audience as Ron Paul's going to be speaking to, and Robert Kiyosaki, and Lynette Zhang, and Lynn Alden, and all these people that you have been following and watching for all these years. You're going to be on the same stage with those guys. Isn't that cool? Whoa. How in the hell does this happen? All right. Again, a long time ago, I had that in my mind. I want to do that. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do it. That's okay. You don't have to figure it out. The universe will do that for you. You just have to have it in your head. You just have to imagine it. You have to believe it. You have to feel it. And then you have to step forward and say, yes, I'm going to take the opportunity when it's presented to me. All right? Yes, I'm going to put out another video. Yes, I am going to, comment on it. I'm going to answer these emails. I'm going to behave and act in a way that is if I was a real YouTuber. And if I'm a real YouTuber, you don't ignore the comments. You don't ignore the emails. You don't ignore the opportunities. You actually pursue those things because they're being presented to you, because that's what YouTubers do. Right? And so it's not hard. You just like life is easy. Most people just make it hard because we had such a hard life growing up. And so we just think that things are hard. We have this very limited mindset, this very like everything is shortage, or not in abundance, lacking. We have like all these feelings about the way things are out there, and literally by carrying that energy of lacking, of of deprived, of failure, or whatever it is that's in there, this is the reflection that we get on the outside world. If we feel on the inside that, no, man, I'm a real YouTuber, I'm a real economist, and I can really talk on stage with some of these really high level people, even though I'm like, I ain't got nothing to prove that. But that's me. No, that's me. I'm that guy. I can do that. And I do it. And then, like, I don't even know how the hell it is that I'm doing this. Because it's all in here, man. It's what I feel. I don't feel like I'm a fraud. I felt like a long time ago that I had like imposter syndrome, going, this doesn't feel right. Like, I'm a working class dude, having money coming in from YouTube, being invited to go do these things. This is so out of the normal for me that I don't feel that this is right, because it didn't feel familiar. The more I did it, the more familiar it came, the more, yes, this is me. This is very comfortable. I can do this. All right. And again, I never doubted myself on the inside on who it was that I thought I was being. Right? Like, I didn't think other people would want to see that. Right? I didn't care that I wasn't trying to entertain other people. I wasn't trying to provide information or ideas out there for other people to say, oh man, you did it really good, but you should do it this way. You should change the way you're doing it. And it wasn't like, no, man, either you accept it or you don't. Right? Because this is who I am. This is like, there's nothing that's going to change about it. There's nothing I'm going to do that's going to be any different. So either you take it or you leave it. Right? And so for me, it was easy. It was just like, I feel it. I know this information. I'm willing to deliver it out there. I'm not going to change my stance on it, because this is what I truly believe. If I can truly believe something else, then I would change my stance on it. And because I look at it that way and I deliver the information that way, then I feel that out there in the world, the people are like, okay, yes, because you are so solid in your belief, here, boom, the universe will deliver the opportunities. Awesome. If I danced around and was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, then the universe can't line up for me, because they don't know who the hell I am. Right? And the same thing for you. Once you are living unapologetically, this is who I am. I'm not going to apologize for it. Right? Yeah, some people don't agree with some of the things that I do or say or whatever. I get it, man. That's cool. But I'm not going to change, right? Because this is who I am and this is the way I'm going to live. And the universe appreciates that. And so does everybody else who looks at the information and says, yeah, man, I may not agree with you, but at least I appreciate your honesty on who you think you are, right? And who you believe in and whatever. All right. People ask me that damn question all the time. Who the hell do you think you are? Yeah, you know what? It's just like... I'm just the best there is. That's all there is to it. Nobody can really touch my stuff. I wake up in the morning and I just piss pure excellence. I love Ron Paul because he is always has the courage to stand for the truth and what's right, even when he was alone. Yeah, I agree. It's one of the things that I really liked about Ron Paul too, is that he was so willing to stand up and state what it is that he truly believed. And if you go back in time and listen to him, he never deviates. He has very much felt this way his entire life. And whether you're listening to him from 25 years ago or if you're listening to him from 2 weeks ago, it's the same dude. You were a rare anomaly from the algorithm blowing up that housing market video you posted 4.5 years ago. I'm very thankful for that happening. Yeah. Yeah, it was, I pissed credible threats. Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys following and listening to the channel and listening to the information and, even sticking it out when it seemed like I was just really like gone way out on a limb and like so deviated from what everybody else was saying. I had a lot of people who quit following the channel. They just kind of basically lost trust lost trust for me, didn't trust the information that I was providing. And, went on to more fear-mongering videos that, probably scared the hell out of them, triggered some emotions, and therefore got their attentions. But I got a lot of people who are coming back. They're saying, dude, you were right, man. You absolutely nailed this. You said it years ago, and here it is. It's taken place. And now they're starting to recognize and see the credible threat theory in the articles that they read and the stories that they're hearing about. And they're coming back to me and recognizing, they're like, hey, dude, check this out. Look at this credible threat that I found, or this, how this is playing out. And that's awesome. I mean, to actually see other people have internalized the information and are now recognizing it for themselves. It's just like, dude, I finally figured, I think I'm doing my job. It's like, I think I got it here, we're getting closer. Uh, amen. Mine is inside my head. That's Simon's office studio. Science is measurable. Do you recommend to pay off the mortgage in advance? Um, Perso Evo? I like the name. Paying off the mortgage early depends on your interest rate that you're paying on it. If you have a high interest rate on it, then yeah, absolutely. Just make as much mortgage payments as you can, because it's never a bad move. Ever. It's never ever a bad move to make extra payments on mortgage. Like, if you don't know what to do with your money, just make mortgage payments with it. Right. So it's never a bad idea to pay off the mortgage early. However, if you have a really low mortgage, like, under 3%, then you could use that money to invest that would get a pretty decent return that's beyond that of the 3% interest that you are paying on the mortgage. So ultimately, like, if you took your money and instead of making a mortgage payment, instead put it towards an investment that got 3% interest, and you were making a 3% mortgage payment, then you're essentially a wash there. It's not doing anything for you. Now, if you could take that investment and get, say, a 10% return off of it, well, then after the mortgage payment of 3%, you're actually making a 7% return on it, on your money. So that's actually pretty decent. So instead of making the mortgage payment, if you can get a 10% return and you have a 3% mortgage, that's actually might not be something to deny, right? That might be a good way to go about things. But again, like, you're never making a bad move by paying off the mortgage early. But there is ways that you could probably deploy that money and do better in the future with it. So in my opinion, paying off the mortgage early really depends on the position that you have taken, not only with the mortgage, but then also what is it that you're going to plan on deploying that money towards, right? Like, if you don't know what you're going to do with the money, then yeah, make the mortgage payment. But if you're like, no, I can get this 10% return, or what I'm hoping is going to be a 10% yield on this investment, well, then, you might want to take that position, where you're only paying a 3% mortgage, so you get a 7% return off of it. All right. Always cost average on your principal. I would never pay an extra penny on a 3% mortgage unless I was about to retire. Yeah, and Cosmic, that's the situation that I'm in. Like, when I do make payments that are over, it's usually advance payments. Like, I'm paying, months, like, the future months payments, which you're still making the interest payment on, but to me, that's buying time. So if there ever came a month or whatever that I couldn't make a payment, then I can postpone that payment or whatever, because I've already made advance payments on it. So to me, like, that's like a security measure for, like a cushion, But other than that, I don't see any real reason to pay off a mortgage early if you have a low interest. Simon, can you touch on the Fed for a newbie? Kind of what to dive into. Thanks. Nelson 357. That's going to be a difficult one to kind of answer. Like, how do you start researching the Fed? Ultimately, if you haven't read The Creature from Jekyll Island, I would probably read that book, right? If you read The Creature from Jekyll Island, then you're probably going to get a really good understanding of how the Federal Reserve is operating. Once you have internalized the idea of the Federal Reserve through the eyes of that book, now, granted, J. Edward Griffin does a freaking fabulous job on that book. But there is, I mean, I can honestly say from what I have learned from the Federal Reserve, it is a bit of conspiratorial minded book, right? Um, in what it is at the Federal Reserve and the reasonings behind a lot of what it is that they do. The facts that they do it, I think, is very prevalent through that book, and it is, and explained well. But the meaning that they give behind some of the actions within it, I think, are a little bit, again, on the conspiratorial side of things. But still, it doesn't take away from the fact that the book is a really excellent read and very informative. So I would start with The Creature from Jekyll Island, start with that book, read that, and then after that, you're probably going to have a much better understanding. It's going to answer a lot of questions for you, and then it'll also open up a whole can of worms of new questions. But ultimately, after that, you'll be doing research on your own and asking the appropriate questions to get the answers to. So start there. Hey Simon, Powell guarantees inflation, and why are we to be surprised by that? In my case, my wife and I are inheriting some money and decided to pay off all our debt first before playtime. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people believe that the Federal Reserve is attempting to bring inflation down to a 2%. I think that they are trying to maintain exactly where they are. Like, I don't think they're trying to change it from any direction. Right? If somebody was just like, well, they're working hard to bring down the, inflation to 2% until we achieve our 2% goal, until, 2%, 2%, 2%. And I hear all this stuff and I'm thinking, no, according to your strategy, long-term strategy and monetary policies, and according to, throughout all the years, how many times have you said it, you're actually seeking to achieve inflation that is moderately above 2% for some time, which means that you are achieving your goal right now. Why would you change anything? Like, I understand the communication doesn't sound like that, right? Because the communication is propagandized and it's meant to cause market behavior to adjust to whatever it is that they want. But the reality of the situation is that they have been standing still and inflation is moderately above 2%, which is right in line with what it is that they want. So why would they change? Right? The communication about it doesn't sound like that. I get that, right? I mean, but then again, the communication is not accurate to what it is that they're trying to do with their monetary policy anyway, right? Because the communication is the propagandized information that delivers whatever it is that they feel is appropriate for the direction it needs to go. And then the market participants with themselves, based on the information that they heard from the Fed, then conduct themselves in a way that is achieving the Fed's monetary policy. The Fed doesn't do anything. I mean, they do stuff, but they don't have to do anything. Right? Yep, since 1913. Oh, wow. What is all-nighter laughing at? What Deja said. What did Deja say? Your twin all-nighter. Okay. The interest we pay on the Fed is massive, and most of it goes to the UK, to the stockholders of the Fed, which is a natural security threat to our freedom. Maybe in some back office ways or something like that, but the Federal Reserve is non-profiting. They have some operation costs, which Elon Musk says is too high and that needs to come down. And then all the profit that they make, or if there's any profit that is made, gets turned back over to the Treasury and is actually alleviates the deficit some. Now, that is how I understand the Federal Reserve, and I understand that there's a lot of people out there who will disagree with that and come up with all kinds of other ideas of what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing. But according to their own statements, their own documents, and the way that the law is written, that's what's happening, right? The Federal Reserve does have operation costs, and then any profit that they make goes back over to the Treasury. All right, $2 from Justin. Have you seen the 80s action movie They Live? I don't know. Maybe. I can't remember. All right. What's going on? Oh, I think Max is cleaning out the car. Okay. Let's see here. I wish Trump would have allowed Ron Paul to do a true audit of the Fed. Yeah, I don't know if it, I mean, I don't know if we would ever actually get that to be the case. Like, I mean, allowed, or would it actually happen? Like, I mean, like, go ahead and audit the Fed. It wasn't like a real audit. So it's just like, it's kind of concerning to me. It is like, I don't think that Donald Trump is really of the mind to try and end the Federal Reserve. When a guy makes as much money and wealth and separates himself from the poor as much as he has due to the use of a debt-based currency, I don't know why he would want that to end. Like, it doesn't sound like something like, to me, when I think about how he made his money, this would literally be like chopping his own. It would be like, yeah, it would be like ending his own way. You guys knew what I was about ready to say, but it would be like ending his own way of life. So I don't know why he would want to end the Federal Reserve. Like, I understand why people would say it, but in the reality of the situation and how he was able to acquire what it is that he did it based on the fact that the Federal Reserve exists. All right, too many gays in the military. 20 Marines who have last. What? Charlatan Zimmerman. I don't know if you're trying to be funny, but it's not. All right. I agree. It's a pretty great movie, and in my brain, it can construe to credible threat economics. Oh, interesting. All right, bro, doesn't freak you out to see your babies driving cars. Okay. Mother Nature's debt never been recognized, that is for sure. Can we all agree that debt ceiling at this point is fake? Oh yeah, like I'm the debt ceiling, yeah, like oh that thing, yeah. Does that still exist? I thought they got rid of that thing. Yeah. Yeah, the debt ceiling, it's more of like, I think it's just a way that the politicians can end up like being in a position that they can have some sort of pull one way or the other in order to, raise the ceiling up one more time. But it's never not raised. Like like it's never been an issue raising the ceiling, the debt ceiling. Like, it always happens. Somebody says to me, dude, what do you think? Are they going to raise the debt ceiling or not? I mean, what do you think the possibilities of it not happening? Like, them not raising the debt ceiling? What are the chances of that happening? 0%. 0%. It will definitely be raised. All right, Simon, what is your take on the M2 money supply currently? How it's rising, how you see the M2 money supply rising. I saw that too. Um, I, you know, a lot of times I think people look at the M2 money supply and they say, hey, when we see this going up, we're going to have inflationary pressures that are coming from it. I do question a lot of that on where it is that money ends up and how it ends up flowing into the system, because I don't think that M2 money supply going up is going to be an inflationary pressure all on its own. We saw M2 money supply rising during the great financial crisis, and it failed to produce an inflationary scenario because of it. Most of that M2 money supply and just the expansion of the currency itself ends up being in the banking system and not actually flowing through the economy. So, although the opportunity and the potential for it to do that is there, it doesn't, it's like my level of concern over that is very low as far as that goes, like creating an inflationary scenario or dollar destruction or something of that nature. I honestly think that the Federal Reserve and the government and everybody is trying to figure out a way to get dollars out of this nation without creating even more trade deficits and stuff like that. Like, because trade deficit, you can easily get the money out, but that's a major problem, right? So how is it that you get this money out without creating even more trade deficit? You know, it's again, like, the question on that is very difficult to answer. How, I mean, like, they have legal authority to buy the debt of a foreign nation, but, whether or not they actually do that is another question on top of it. So, all right. John, thank you for the $10. Why would you call it an action movie? Transformers is an action movie. Anyway, it's John Carpenter, Roddy Piper movie. Much respect and appreciation from Southwest Washington to Astoria's finest son. Hey, thank you very much, John. I appreciate that. All right. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much for all that support. I mean, we got $38.68 in super chats. You guys, I say it every time, but you would not believe how much I support or appreciate the support for the channel. Because, like, I don't know what I would be doing right now if it wasn't for the fact that I have this going on. I would have had to figure something else out in my life, but when I started, pushing these videos out and doing this, I realized that, man, I really enjoy this. This is like something that I feel is in me that needed to be coming out in this fashion. Like, I cannot imagine doing something else with my life. I mean, I could do all kinds of stuff. Like, I enjoy all kinds of, doing like the play, the acting thing, traveling around, all the stuff that I do. But being out here, sharing this information, doing these live streams, breaking this information down, bringing it to you so that you can internalize it for yourself. I love this. I mean, I cannot think of anything else that I would rather be doing with my time, other than maybe spending it with my family. But outside of spending it with the family, this is it, man. You guys are like my family. Hey, right on. Financial firefighter up in the house. Aloha from Hawaii. Well, aloha back. Consuming is dope. What hobby do you have? This is my hobby. I have other stuff like, working on the house and, some other things, but I really don't have the hobbies like I once did. Studying this information, breaking this stuff down, spending time with the family. There's outdoor adventure stuff that I like to do. We got metal detectors. We like going metal detecting. Occasionally we'll go and play around with the black sands to go get some gold. Mushroom hunting, that's a fun one to do. These are generally like, if there was a hobby, those are kind of like the activities that I would be in. But for the most part, this is it. Like, studying this stuff, this is my hobby. More family just showed up. What's going on, all-nighter? All right. Had you running in the background and even went to the store. Right on, Wayne. Thank you. All right. Living the dream. Yeah. Is that a right side drive you're in? No, for whatever reason, the YouTube app flips the camera around, and I'm not sure why. Like, the settings on my phone are correct. Like, I do a video, just a recorded video. It's you're showing it the proper way, but for whatever reason, the YouTube app, like after I did the last update too, has now screwed the camera around. So, if you want to pick up a hobby, happy to give you a virtual guitar lesson. I take payments in Bitcoin and silver. Well, that sounds fun. All right, we have owners. They are British. Make no mistake. Thank you, John. Thank you all. Thank you, Brody. Simon is the best. Definitely a real one. Well, I appreciate you, Nelson357. And this is the thing, like, that's what I love about me doing this channel, is that I don't have anything to sell. Like, that's, I mean, I said it before, and I mean, I'm going to try and come up with something to sell, and maybe we'll do a collective here on the YouTube channel or something like that, and have some higher tier memberships or something going on, but I don't have anything to sell. And so therefore, I don't have to push anything in a particular direction to convince you that I got it right or wrong, right? It's not a matter of that. There's other people out there who are trying to tell you, hey, they got it right. They know how to do the housing. Here's their course on how to do house, how to do real estate. And they're probably really good at it, right? So they have something to sell. So when they're doing their real estate course, or they're trying to sell their real estate course, they also have to deliver information that says, hey, I know a lot about real estate. Like, I know a lot about the real estate market, the housing market, the construction market, the supply market. I know all about the interest rate markets, the banking, finance, all this, like all these different tiers of stuff that you have to know, and then deliver that information in a way that is very accurate in order to sell your course. Because the moment that you screw that up, then your course probably is going to have a difficult time selling if you can't get the rest of the information right. Okay. I'm not trying to sell a course. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just delivering the information as I see it, one way or the other. It doesn't really make any difference to me on whether it goes up, down, or sideways. It's like that part is inconsequential to me. It doesn't matter. I'm just looking at it for what it is, and then trying to, deliver the information from the working class point of view that I have, that says, hey, we have forefront information that most people don't see because we have a working class job. We understand what's coming off the truck. We understand how many customers are coming through the door. We understand what phone calls are being, are coming in. We see it much differently than somebody who's opening up a computer and saying, okay, well, what happened last month? And then they're looking at sales analysis of what has already occurred when we're living it in real time. So again, all right, but you get what you pay for. Yeah. All right. The protagonist and they live is basically a regular dude like you, E2. All right. The debt ceiling was removed. Yeah, I thought it was. See, that's why I don't even pay attention to it, because to me it doesn't even exist anyway. And I thought that they had removed the debt ceiling. I know they've done it in the past, and they'll probably put it back at some point and remove it again. But it's all for political pull, one way or the other. Yeah. The working class need to up the ante. Yeah. Gammon is really good at charts, but I can already read. Yeah, that's what caught my attention from George Gammon was his whiteboard videos. I mean, I watched a couple of them. Literally, it was a comment on a video that I had done. Somebody says, you should check out George Gammon. So I go and I check out George Gammon. I'm like, wow, this guy's good. He's like really good. He does these great whiteboard videos. I give him like, I don't even think it was a 30-second shout out, maybe. It's like, hey, George is a really good guy, does these awesome whiteboard videos, doesn't have many subscribers. You all should go check him out. Like, that was about the extent of the shout out I gave him. Dude was so taken back, like basically took me under his wing for a little bit, says, hey man, let's up your channel a little bit, invited me down to the Rebel Capitalist to go speak. It was like one of the greatest, networking events that had ever happened for me. Couldn't believe it, right? But it all came from a comment and then me giving him like not even a 30-second shout out, and it changed the course of everything for me. It was crazy. All right. I appreciate your valuable insight, Simon. Well, thank you. Plumbing inspired by James Golden. I appreciate the comment, man. They will argue the debt forever get real. Yeah, that's true. In the capitalist spirit, I do virtual guitar lessons as well and only charge DoorDash. Simon, why is the debt path the Treasury on unsustainable? Could it be arbitrarily high and it wouldn't make any real difference? Well, I kind of almost agree that it wouldn't make any real difference, but I could like debt is unsustainable in any fashion, right? Like at some point, if you are issuing out the debt and you're selling that debt to somebody and they're still accepting it, then everything is cool. But then one day they don't, it's over, right? So the Fed knows that if this is the continuation, we're going to continue to issue out debt to pay for the old debt. Issue out more debt, pay for the old debt. Issue out more, and it's going to grow. At some point, you're not going to be able to issue out new debt. And it's just not going to work anymore. People are not going to trust it. It's not going to be accepted anymore. You're going to have a loss of confidence, and it's all going to be over. Now, how far out into the future that is, I don't know. Is there a number that says this is the point that it's no longer going to work? We're already past the point of no return. You can't go and pay the debt off. That's not going to happen. So we're on a one-way street to failure. How far out into the future that takes is anybody's guess. It could be They could come up with all kinds of ways of carrying the system on, right? Negative interest rates, cashless society, UBI programs. There's a lot of stuff that could take place that aren't being deployed right now that would say, yes, the debt can continue on, right? But if you were to ask somebody, say 50, 60 years ago, hey, we're going to be sitting in a position like this today, they would be like, oh no, that ain't going to happen. That can't happen. They would say it. That can't happen because of the way that the things that were being conducted back in the day. You just wouldn't have been able to do it. Right? First of all, we were on a gold standard, so it would never have achieved such levels as this anyway. So, the way things change as we evolve on, as the banking system evolves and things change, we're going to look back and say like, oh man, can you ever imagine that things would be like this now? Well, hell, you could go back 20 years and say, hey, we're going to have negative interest rates at some point on sovereign debt and corporate debt in the future. People would be like, no, you're not. Nobody's going to do that. No way. But then it happened, right? Gammon is a beast. Yeah, I totally agree. He shouted you out about 2 weeks ago and played your audio clip. We're proud of you. Oh, he did? Well, right on, man. I got to give George a thank you. I meant to call him up and talk to him about going down to the Rebel Capitalist, but that's cool. He gave me a shout out. That's awesome. George is the best, man. All those guys are. I mean, I cannot brag them up enough. Like, literally, I cannot brag those guys up enough. They are so awesome. Even if I say stuff that that contradicts what they say, I like that's not the point. Like, I have information, they have information. You take in all the information and figure out what it is that you need from it, right? Because everybody has golden nuggets of information that they can deliver at any given time. And so, even though I may not agree with a lot of what is being said out there, especially when it comes to the damn 2% target as opposed to a 2% average inflation rate over time, that's like neither here nor there when it comes to the information that is being delivered. These guys have great information, and you can absorb all kinds of stuff by listening to many different people at all the time. So those guys are awesome. You know who does the best presentation is Mark Moss. Mark Moss at the Rebel Capitalist, his presentations are so good. They are so entertaining. Like, I mean, the images that he has up for his like, his talking points, for his PowerPoint, everything, it's just so good. It's just like so entertaining to watch. But I mean, like, out of the Rebel Capitalist, I think Mark Moss is one of the funnest ones to watch. Jeff Snyder probably delivers some of the best information, which is very difficult to follow. Like, I mean, you sit there and just like focus in on it, and even still, it's just like it's hard to retain a lot of what it is that's being said, especially like over the course of the weekend. It's like a lot of information dump. You're just like overwhelmed by it all. But I believe Mark Moss does the most entertaining, good information, funnest to watch presentation. Jeff Snyder probably does the best information as far as like, just the actual detailed information. Everybody's really good, as far as that goes. But I really enjoy those two. Jason Hartman has a great presentation when he talks about the real estate and compares it to, like, compared to what. By far, like, that's Sarah's favorite. My wife, like, she thinks Jason Hartman's has got the best presentation. She loves that, compared to what idea. People used to ask that all the time. That would be her snappy answer to it. It was just like, well, is housing expensive? She'd say, compared to what? Like, what are you comparing it to? Brent Johnson has great presentation too. Yes, absolutely. Brent Johnson. You know what I like about Brent Johnson? Is that the last time, at least, I don't know if he's still doing it this way, but he takes his milkshake theory and just completely disassembles it. Like, just like, if you were to debate the milkshake theory, like, his arguments against the milkshake theory are probably better than anybody else could ever come up with. He absolutely tears his theory to pieces, then goes back over the same information again, and then just delivers it in such a way that he just, like, absolutely confirms it, right? So it's so amazing. He does such a good job with his presentation because of the way that he does it like that. Like people who disagree with the milkshake theory, you could not come up with a better argument against it than he has, because he has absolutely the best argument against his own theory, and then delivers information that disintegrates the idea that it's wrong and absolutely proves his points. So it's just like, it's such a great way of going about it. Luke Roman and Mark Moss are my favorite. Holy crap, there's more to follow. Yeah. Luke is a badass too. I can understand pretty easy. He just talks. Yeah. Yeah. All those guys are awesome. Yeah, and Mark Moss is a good dude. Just in general, like just talking to Mark, he's like a really nice guy. Like he's like that chill Southern California surfer, almost preppy kind of guy. Like, you know, I mean, that's the way I would kind of describe him. And he's really cool. Like, I mean, he's a cool dude. So he argues with himself. Brilliant. Yeah, no, he pretty much does. He disassembles and tears his own theory apart and then puts it right back together again and just like totally just bashes, like, you know, just proves his case. All right. I'm not sure about silver, but what is scary is that soon the government won't be able to bonds at the auction because no buyers. I disagree, really. You're basically saying that, you know, when they go to auction, there's not going to be anybody to buy. I disagree with that. The auction will go through. The primary dealers, like the big banks, will come through and buy them. And if there is a lack of buyers for those bonds out there, the Federal Reserve will step in with a quantitative easing. There is zero chance of there being I mean, there very well could be a failed auction. Don't get me wrong, right? And, you know, there's probably been cases in the past of something very similar to that happening. But the point being is that the mechanisms that we have set up within our banking systems is just simply not going to allow there to be a failure within the bond market of any sort, right? Bonds will get paid and they will sell, guaranteed, every single time, right? Because if it was to fail, then the whole banking system would begin to collapse. All right. So it has to. It has no other choice. If it doesn't, then we would see a melting down of the entire system, which very well could happen, but it's not happening, right? And I have no belief that it's going to happen in the near future, right? Could it? Sure. There's always that possibility, but there's no evidence of it taking place at this point. And the idea that there's not going to be any buyers of treasuries, think about it. Russia just recently bought $40 million worth of U.S. treasuries. Russia. Like, Russia did, you know? And so, anyway, all nations want treasuries. All corporations do. The only time they ever get out of treasuries is when they're trying to get into cash because their debts are coming due and they need cash to pay their debts. The fastest way to get into cash is to sell your U.S. treasuries. So when corporations, nations, whenever you hear them dumping treasuries, take a look at the dollar demand for their debt obligations that are due in dollars. Take a look at that. Right? Because, I mean, if you can find it or if you can find the information on it, because that's most likely the reason why they're dumping out of their treasuries. It's not because they don't want treasuries. Right? Everybody wants treasuries, even including Russia. Everybody wants them. That's what they use to do world transactions with, is U.S. treasuries. So by far the most popular debt instrument out there, safe and liquid asset. And yeah, zero chance of default. All right. So he argued, okay, so, be able to sell. Right. Well, I understand that, you know, you're saying like, you know, be able to sell, that's the big question. Right. I get that. Right. Whether or not you're going to be able to sell it. Think about it though. Tomorrow, I am not concerned about not being able to sell it. Day after that, I'm not concerned. Next week, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about them not being able to sell the U.S. Treasuries. I'm not concerned about the liquidity of a U.S. Treasury. The U.S. Treasury has stepped up and bought back their own bonds to make sure that that market stays liquid. The Federal Reserve has a printing press. They will make sure that market stays liquid. The whole world demands U.S. Treasury bonds. There is very little chance that there's going to be any kind of failure within it. Very small. Right? Now, the idea behind it, the conspiratorial mind of what would happen, right? The catastrophic, apocalyptic event that could come from it is quite crazy and drastic. But I don't see it, right? I don't see it happening. Not yet. All right. Are we done here, guys? Let me cruise down here. What time is it? Man, almost two and a half hours into this thing. My goodness. All right. Pent-up demand, maybe. Russia didn't want to buy from Biden. What are you talking about? He did buy from Biden. I think it was during the Biden administration that they did pick that up. Didn't they? I'm pretty sure. It doesn't have to do with Biden or Trump, right? And it was only $40 million worth. It was like, tiny little drop in the ocean, of like the amount of money that's actually out there in the bond market. Like Russia's activity in it is like insignificant. There's probably people in the United States who have more in bonds than Russia does, They can basically just buy with the money they print. Wow, what a Ponzi. Yeah. That's absolutely what the statement came from Greenspan back in like the 90s when they asked him about it. When they said that, is there a chance of there being a bond default? He said there is a 0 chance of there being a United States Treasury bond default. He says because the United States has the printing press and can always print the money to pay the bond. He said, though, right after that, they cannot guarantee the purchasing power of that money. They can guarantee the bond will be paid, but they can't guarantee the purchasing power of the money that's paying the bond. And that's the scary part. So essentially that is a defaulting if it doesn't have any value to it once you paid it. His house is too big to rig. I mean, I think it's kind of like a rigged from the beginning, but yeah, essentially it is. Won't be able to see it till it's too late. In 50 years, house prices will begin to reduce as population in the West starts decreasing, assuming immigration doesn't bring more people in. Japan is an example of this. Yeah, I kind of agree with that in a lot of ways, and I think Japan is a great example of what could happen with real estate once you have a population that is aged, and now, you didn't have a younger population to replace the older population. Now you got a whole bunch of houses out there that essentially sit empty. Yeah, I could see where something like that may be taking place. And I agree that it's probably, with a lack of immigration that would create that sort of situation. But again, that would be like, we have to wait and see, and there would be a lot of what ifs that come from that. Japan is very stringent on who can come into the nation, who can come to Japan. Here in the United States, it's like, it's like, I don't think they really care. I mean, I think they try to care, but I don't think they really care. I'm enjoying the live stream in my fishy pond. Life is good. Right on, all night. It's great to hear. All right. We will continue to get screwed until we end the Fed. No other way to end slavery. Usury in the U.S. Usury is immoral and unconstitutionally illegal. Well, I agree with you, Barney. And, I'm in a position in which, or I don't know if I'm in a position, but I'm mentally positioned myself to think about what it would be like to have a gold standard or no Federal Reserve. In fact, I'm wearing my End the Fed hoodie. Right? I got my End the Fed hoodie on. I can see the position, right? The problem that I would also see is that we are not a manufacturing powerhouse. And that's going to put us in a very, very, very compromised position as we would start importing stuff and exporting all our gold or money. If we didn't have a Federal Reserve to print up the money, then we would have to literally have money to send them, or else they're not going to send us stuff, which really would mean gold because the Federal Reserve doesn't exist. So we're going to import stuff, export gold, and we all fall into poverty and misery on account of it. Now, me personally, I will see that coming and I will position myself to take advantage of it, but I imagine that most people are probably going to suffer immensely because of that. So again, I think that it's great for you, Barney, and it would be great for me, the uneducated economist, to end the Federal Reserve. Other people who have positioned themselves both mentally and, financially, physically to deal with that, they would also do well. 95% of the people out there, probably even more, will suffer horribly because of it. Right? Because they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to deal with the fact that their retirement, which is all probably based in U.S. Treasury debt, is not going to get paid. How do they handle that? They weren't prepared to deal with, the fact that their Treasury retirement or Treasury holdings in their retirement isn't going to pay. Like, they don't know how to handle that, right? And so ending the Federal Reserve, sure, let's do it. Sounds great to me. Are you ready to watch a bunch of people crying in the streets and suffering and poverty and misery because of it? I mean, it's going to probably happen one way or the other. So, I mean, I don't want to see that. But if it happened, I would know why, All right, I added another 70-gallon sump with baffles and filters to the water. The pond is super clear and pretty right now. That's cool. Yeah, if I had a pond, it would just be full of salamanders. End the Fed, then what? Right? See, that's the thing. End the Fed, and then what? I totally agree with you, Nelson. Then what? If we don't have a Federal Reserve, we're going to have a hard currency system, or we're going to have another central banking system. Either way, it's just it's going to create some sort of havoc or misery for somebody, right? Now, me personally, I'll take it or leave it or go one way or the other. I do not care. I care, but I don't care what ends up happening because I'm going to deal with it for the whatever it is. I'm not expecting it to go any direction. Not up, down, sideways, left, right, doesn't matter. Right? To me, I just have to notice what it is that's taking place so that I can position myself for it. That's it. Right? Because all the idea that we have to, got to, good, should, all the other, doesn't make any matter. Doesn't make any difference. Right? It should be. You're right. It should be another way. Right? But if it was that other way, it would benefit you. But what about that guy over there who it's not going to benefit? It's actually going to hurt him. So you're okay with it being beneficial for you, but you also don't want to hurt this person over there, do you? Oh, maybe you do. I don't know. I don't. I'm just hey, what is happening, right? Because, if it's good for this person, it's going to be bad for that person. I'd be like, oh, sorry, man. I didn't realize it was going to be bad for you, but it's really great for him. How do you figure that part out? You just can't. So it's just better to understand it, internalize it for yourself, and say, hey, you guys do what you're going to do. I understand that I'm not going to agree with any of it, but I have to understand what it is that you're doing so that I can position myself for it. That's it, right? No hate, no love, no shame, no nothing, right? Just go for it. I definitely expect a recession to begin before the year is out. Yeah, Mark, I can get that. But then again, we've been hearing about a recession for 3-4 years now. And when I saw, I'm not necessarily going with the recessionless recession any longer, right? Because that was something that I was talking about, 4 years ago. And it very much played out in the way that I was thinking, right? Because a lot of people thought that there was going to be a recession in 2022, 2021, 2023, 2024, and then now here we are in 2025. And there's still no recession. People say, hey, it's still coming, right? Okay. Now, when they were calling for a recession back in 2021, 2022, here we got one coming, it's coming, 2023, it's coming. I kept referring to the recessionless recession, saying that we are not going to see a recession like a lot of people would have anticipated. What's the worst part of a recession? Corporations get bailed out and everybody loses their job. Well, what if those two things don't happen? What if the corporations were already bailed out and the labor market is so strong and so tight that we don't find a rise in unemployment like we would typically experience during a recession. Well, this is what's happened, was the recessionless recession. A lot of people don't realize that the corporations got bailed out during the COVID pandemic. It got bailed out in the most credible, threatening way. It was one of the best stories. In fact, hold on, I got it here. And this speech, let me find it. Downloads, credible threat theory. Gold machine, Jefferson. Let me see here. Where was it? Richard Clarida said on May 21st, 2020, all right, so this is like, again, back when the pandemic was kicking in and all the stimulus packages were going out. Clarida had this to say, talking about the facilities, setting up the lending facilities, because ultimately these lending facilities don't exist unless there's unusual and exigent circumstances. So it says here, these programs are authorized under emergency lending powers granted to the Fed under Section 13.3 of the Federal Reserve Act and are available only in, quote, unusual and exigent circumstances. All right. Now, with these facilities, this is what ended up happening. He says, we are providing a bridge by stepping in and supporting lending throughout the economy until the recovery takes hold. These programs are designed to offer a backstop source of funding to the private sector, and just the announcement of these backstop facilities would soon be launched appears to have bolstered the confidence in the capital markets, allowing many companies to finance themselves privately even before the facilities were up and running. Okay, so now these facilities were going to be buying into corporate debt. This is how they were going to bail out the corporations. They set up these lending facilities that could only exist in unusual and exigent circumstances. Because of the COVID, they set these things up, funded it with hundreds of billions of dollars, and then blasted out there over the mainstream media. And I was one of these people on YouTube who was screaming that the Federal Reserve was going to be picking the winners and losers by buying into corporate debt. Right here, it says that it appears that the backstop facilities would soon be launched, right? The announcement of it appears to have bolstered the confidence in the capital markets, allowing many of these companies to finance themselves privately before the facilities were up and running. So just the credible threat alone that these facilities were going to be buying corporate debt had people going out there buying into corporate debt, like front-running the Federal Reserve, gorging on this corporate debt. These corporations were able to borrow money at incredibly low interest rates, and they were able to get all the funding they needed. Now, as they go into what would be a recession, they have all the cash they need because the market pretty much handed it to them, believing that the Federal Reserve was going to be buying into it. All right? The credible threat alone was enough to fund these corporations. So now they're sitting on a bunch of cash, and unemployment is hitting rock bottom low, going into a recession, right? The corporations aren't going to get bailed out, and the unemployment doesn't rise significantly. It was a recessionless recession. Now we're going into a new era, right? A new time. The leftovers from this particular situation is probably not left too much, in the economy. Like, I can't imagine that these corporations are still sitting on a ton of cash that they had borrowed from 4 years ago. Maybe a bunch of them are, right? But ultimately, this ability to prevent the recession, I think, has played out. So we very well could be rolling into what could be a recession, or the idea of recession-like economy, because I don't necessarily think that a recession is going to appear in the way that we had assumed a recession would look from the previous ones that we had experienced. See, like, a lot of the idea of, like, the recession indicators, like, say, for example, the inverted yield curve or the SOM rule, neither one of these proved themselves to be the recession indicator. Like, the SOM rule was so good. It was so good. It basically was saying that if unemployment rises, a certain amount over the course of 2 quarters or something. I can't remember exactly how the SOM rule played out, but ultimately, she had found that throughout history, studying the Federal Reserve's, numbers, that she found this particular situation had occurred prior to every single recession. This movement in unemployment worked every single time until this time. All right. This was the first time that the Somme rule indicated that a recession, but it didn't occur. Same thing with the inverted yield curve, right? The inverted yield curve reinverting, steepening again was the recession indication that it was about ready to occur. It didn't happen, right? So these recession indicators that were so telling of the past don't work like they used to. And the reason is because the Federal Reserve doesn't conduct themselves like they used to. They used to use interest rate adjustments as their main policy tool, which would then make these other indicators work very well. But they're not using the interest rate or using the adjustment of interest rates for the monetary policy. They're using their words, which then has a much different impact on the markets than what we had used to see. So this is one of the reasons why it doesn't work like it used to, is because they just don't conduct themselves the way they used to. Nobody knows that, so they keep looking at these indicators saying, hey, this should be creating a recessionary pressure from these indications that are happening out here, but then they don't take into consideration that the numbers, the adjustment of the Fed funds rate, isn't what's creating the economy anymore, right? Or isn't guiding the economy anymore. It's the credible threats. It's their words. Alrighty, guys, what time is it? It is getting late. We are 2.5 hours into this live stream. It is like 11:30. Wow, what a great day, man. This has been awesome. I'm not sure how much longer we can go, though. I think my battery's probably, no, I got 27% of my battery still. So, yeah, like Biden and Kamala was the better choice. Stop gas already. 265 in New York. What? I don't understand any of that. Like blaming Biden for anything is like, you also have to then give him credit for all the other stuff that was positive about the economy. You know, like people were like, oh man, worst economy ever. It was horrible. Everybody was blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know. I did quite well. Right. But then again, I don't blame Biden and I don't give Trump credit. So it's just like, because of that, I just go off of what it is that I'm feeling and understanding about what's going on at the time, and I make the best, most appropriate decisions for myself. If I was to take on the consideration, Biden screwed this up. He is screwing the economy. He's screwing everything up. He's screwing the world up. He's screwing, right? The internal message, the subconscious that I will have for my thoughts and understandings will then have a universe delivering me that outcome. You get a direct reflection of what it is that you are thinking and feeling. If you think and feel that Trump is screwing you over, then this is exactly the environment that you will get. I don't think that. I don't feel that way. I don't feel Trump is screwing it up, and I'm not giving him credit. Right? I give myself credit for making the appropriate decisions based on what it is that I'm seeing out there. Because, again, if I think and feel and understand that my decision making is the correct one and that I am going to be delivered the appropriate position because of that, the universe will provide that for me because that's what I'm thinking and feeling. Right? Other people out there think and feel much differently, and they get a world of misery because of it, and then they prove it to me by saying, look, see how messed up my world is? And I'm thinking, yep, you proved it to yourself. You sure did. Great job, ego. Ego is always right. Simon is spot on. We adjust to our environment and circumstances. Absolutely. Absolutely. Who said that? Wealth building journey. See? Right? Coming from wealth building journey. Adapt to your situation. Figure out what it is you need to do it right. Don't expect the government to do it right. All right? Like, that's the last thing that you can. In fact, you should just expect the government's going to do it wrong. Right? And that because they're going to do it wrong, I have to make appropriate decisions because of that. In fact, like, if you deliver, like, think about things being opposite almost of what it is that you would normally want. I want the government to be, acting appropriately. Don't expect them to. They won't. They don't act appropriately. And I don't expect them to. And because of that, then I have no expectations of them acting appropriately. It doesn't matter if they do or don't. And in fact, because I don't expect them to when they do, it's a good thing. Right? Yeah, I mean, I was like, wow, that was something I didn't expect. You guys did the right thing. That's weird. All right. Big facts. Who thinks Social Security will be around and funded appropriately by retirement age? Oh, man. In fact, I kind of like not even think about it as like an option. I just kind of consider it like the old people tax. It's just like, hey, we have a bunch of people who are retired and they need assistance to live or whatever. It's the old people tax. It's just like, okay, so that's Social Security. Me personally, I don't expect it. And then if it is there, hey, right on, bonus, right? But I'm not going to have politicians dangling that thing out in front of me saying, oh man, you better listen to me or else your Social Security, la la la. And I'll be like, okay, just go dangle that and send somebody else because I don't care, right? And, I mean, I care, but I don't care to be like, having that thing dangled out in front of me and saying, hey, you better listen to me or else. And it'd be like, yeah, you can keep that, right? I ain't listening, Sure, how you convince the majority of Americans that can't afford eggs. I'm just like, this is what blows me away. Like, how many eggs do people actually eat that this is deteriorating their finances? Like, is eggs such a big deal? Like, I eat so many eggs, I can't believe it, man. I'm going to go into the poorhouse because of the price of eggs. Yeah, what? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I mean, I just bought like Sarah just loaded up on beef for like I forget it was like half the price of what it was normally. We just loaded up on it. All right, we're not buying eggs. We're buying steaks. We're buying chicken. We're buying other stuff, and it's fairly inexpensive. Like, why would I focus in on something that is in limited supply that costs a lot of money and say, "Oh man, look at my life is ruined because of these eggs." And meanwhile, I'm picking up boxes of like cereal for $1.50. And I'm like, and I'm not like, yeah, okay, eggs are expensive. Go find something else that isn't, because there's plenty of stuff that isn't. I don't eat eggs, but it costs a fortune to throw them. Yeah, it does. A dozen eggs is one beer at the bar. Four people, one dozen a week. I'm about to buy some hens and maybe a cow to milk. It's not just eggs, everything is going up. Yes, I agree. But there's also plenty of wonderful deals out there that if you just go shopping around, you can find them. If you want, like, here's the thing. This is what ends up happening a lot is that we get upset with the way things are. And then we say, hey, man, this is ruining my life. And then we go out there and find evidence that it's ruining our life. And then we feel really good because the ego gets to say, ha ha, I proved it. It's ruining our life. Ha ha. Right? Because the ego wants to be right. So even if it's like punishing yourself, as long as the ego's right, it feels like it won. Right? So here's the problem with that is that if you let go of the ego and say, yeah, all right, the government is screwed up. They screwed everything up. The banking system screwed everything up. The eggs are expensive. How the hell do I deal with this? What do you got over there on sale? Oh, you got Raisin Bran for $1.50 a box? Great. How many can I buy? All right. You see the difference inside of this? Not everything has gone up. Everything goes up, but not everything has gone up. Right? Like, I can go and find deals all over the place. When I saw that chicken was selling for, it was like on sale, I loaded up my freezer. I bought as much as I could stuff into the freezer. Right? And if we were of mind of it, Sarah could probably buy even more of it and can it up. Right? Because we take advantage of the deals when we see them. She's the best shopper in the world. I told her she should actually start a YouTube channel that's just geared towards grocery shopping. Because she is so good at it. She's so good at it. Yeah, where the hell do you get? I'll tell you what, man. I'm going to start doing this. I am going to have my wife, when she goes grocery shopping, start showing you some of the deals that she is finding. Because she does. She'll go to different stores. She don't care. She'll go to Safeway, Fred Meyer, Costco, down at, like, she'll go to all the different stores in order to get the best deal. Right? And it's not like you have to run all over the place like in like your head's cut off or something trying to figure out how to get these deals. You just take advantage of the deals when you see them. She goes to the store. She says, man, I see that thing is on sale. That thing is cheaper than it normally is. I'm loading up on that thing this time. Right? All right. Set up a cart cam. Yeah, right? Your cart adds up quick. I was doing appraisals, lost business from interest rates. So yeah, pivot, but saying not great out there for realtors too. I'm sending back a free phone now because I didn't agree with the terms, but it was free and I didn't ask for it. The expensive eggs fixation is the bias confirmation. Absolutely, it is. I very much agree. Because the eggs went up like, how much did they go up before? Like it was almost for the same reason. The only difference was back then they blamed it on avian bird flu, but really, and I mean, I had documented this. Well, it wasn't me documenting. I had found a chicken farmer who documented it in a TikTok video or an Instagram video saying that they weren't getting the price for their eggs, probably because they were under contract. Excuse me. So as the cost started going up to produce eggs, feed, electricity, all the other stuff that goes into it, because they're under contract, they weren't able to get the price for their eggs. So they're going out of business because ultimately their cost goes up, but their price that they're selling it for stayed the same. Their profit margin shrinks. So he said, we're not investing in new hens, not until, things change. So he even straight up said it. We are not going to be producing going into the future. We are not going to supply new hens. We are not buying them. Well, if you're not supplying new hens, if they're not going to buy them, then you're going to have a drop in egg production. That's exactly what we saw happen. Everybody blames it on price, on money printer. They blame it on avian bird flu, but they do not blame it on the bullwhip effect. Once you recognize it and you see it from the bullwhip effect, I said eggs are going to come right back to the same price that they were before the pandemic, before all that other stuff. That's exactly what we saw happen. Then avian bird flu again, and boom, here we have this, price inflation due to the supply shortage. All righty, guys, I'm starting to lose my voice here. So I think we've done it enough. We're 2 hours and 46 minutes into this live stream. My goodness, 243 people watching with 329 likes. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for all those likes. Thank you everybody who has stayed with us for all these hours here today, going through this information. I think it's a really good one. Do you think interest rates will come down in Q3 or Q4? Are you talking like mortgage rates, or are you talking the Fed funds rate? Because the Federal Reserve can lower rates, but then the mortgage rates may go up, because that's what we saw happen last time. Okay? So now here's a better way to think about this. Jane, is it Jane? Yeah, Jane. This is the better way to think about this. Okay? Because the information that is being delivered about the rate adjustment has a profound impact on the market's perception of where inflation and interest rates are going to go. Okay. Now, I read this earlier today, but I'm going to read it again just so we can get a better understanding of it. Okay. And this is from the Makeup Strategy. And let me read this again. Okay, because this is the information I kind of blew past it real quick, but this is very important, right? Inflation expectations are more difficult to assess because they depend on the public's interpretation of the guidance. An unexpected loosening, right? So this is the interest rate adjustment. An unexpected loosening, the lowering of interest rates, okay? The unexpected loosening could lower inflation expectations. So all of a sudden you wake up and the Fed is like, emergency rate cut, right? This lowers the inflation expectations. People think, oh man, recession, deflation, right? So unexpected loosening lowers the inflation expectations if the public interpreted the action as the Federal Reserve predicting a weak economy. Okay? So if it's a weak economy, and this is the reason why they're cutting the interest rates, what are you going to have is a lowering of the inflation expectation. Got it? If the public instead saw the change as simply reflecting a more accommodative policy stance, inflation expectation would be expected to rise. So think about it. The adjustment itself is the same. The rate move was the same. The delivery of the information changed. If that changes, then the outcome changes, but the action stayed the same. So let me read it one more time. An unexpected loosening could lower inflation expectations if the public interpreted the action as the Federal Reserve predicting a weak economy in the future. Oh no, recession. Oh no, problems. Oh no, weak labor market. Lowering interest rates, right? Lowering the interest rates in a weak economy. That will lower the inflation expectation. That will lower the interest rates. If instead the public saw the change as simply reflecting a more accommodative policy stance, inflation expectations would be expected to rise. So no worries. We don't have a recession. Labor market's kicking ass. Everything is fine. We cut interest rates to be a little bit more supportive of the economy, and inflation will go the other way. Interest rates will go up. Inflation goes up. Again, the action is the same. Okay? It doesn't matter. The action doesn't matter. It does matter, but it's like 6 months, 10 months down the road, a year down the road, that action makes a difference. But in the immediate, the market expectations and interpretation of the delivery of the message about the rate cut has a profound impact on whether it's going to have an inflation expectation or a disinflation expectation. But it's all about the delivery of the message. So we can see this, we can actually recognize this from back at the end of 2023, right? Fed funds rate was going to be 7 interest rate cuts. The dot plot predicted all these interest rate cuts, saying, hey man, inflation, we conquered inflation, everything's coming down. We're going to have this awesome time where we can bring interest rates back down to a normal position, whatever. They had all this information talking about it. Everything was hunky-dory. It was going well. All right. What happened to mortgage rates? They're ticking down. Before, the Fed didn't do anything yet, right? They just made this announcement, hey, dot plot, right? Sometime in 2024, we're going to be cutting, 7 times or whatever it is. Mortgage rates, okay, yeah, cool. No problems, right? Good economy, everything's going well. Fed's just kind of conducting themselves in a more accommodative stance, right? Bringing the interest rates down on mortgages. Soon as the Fed cut, right? Emergency rate cut. Oh no, shocking. Oh no, now what? Right? What ends up happening? People are losing their mind. They're like, oh, hey, got a weak economy, got things going on, right? What do they say? I don't want to deploy my capital into a weak economy unless I get a bigger return off of it. Mortgage rates started to move up. Opposite of the Federal Reserve. So it's all about how it is that they deliver the information. Say they delivered the information at the end of 2023, totally lowered interest rates. They actually cut interest rates, delivered it with a different type of information, and then all of a sudden the interest rates go the other way. Mortgage rates move the opposite way. It's because it's all about the communication. It's not about the interest rate adjustments. We can talk about how much they're going to cut, whether or not they're going to cut, all that other stuff. We can talk about it all day long. It doesn't make any difference. How they deliver the information about the rate cut does. That makes all the difference in the world, whether or not it goes up, down. Okay? It's important. See, and it's not just in this speech. Hold on. Let me bring up Jefferson's speech real quick before this power runs out. Where was that one? Jefferson, right here. This is what he has to say using textual, right? Text, right? Using textual analysis, high frequency asset price data, and high frequency central banking communication data. This research shows that investors' reactions to specific sentences communicated by the central bank are quickly incorporated into asset prices. Again, think about that. Specific sentences communicated by the central bank are quickly incorporated into asset prices. The Federal Reserve knows that there are specific sentences that they use that the markets will then see and have a reaction that will then incorporate into the asset prices. They know how to deliver this. They can adjust the asset prices by using specific sentences. Right? It doesn't have anything to do with interest rate adjustments. It has everything to do with the delivery of the information. And by delivering the information in the appropriate way for their monetary policy, they can actually adjust the asset prices one way or the other by using specific sentences. You see how this works? This isn't working off of like the systematic process of lowering interest rates within the short-term lending rates of the big banks and all this other stuff. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Right? You have to understand that stuff though in order to understand how it is that they are using the communication, because they're talking about that stuff. But that stuff doesn't have the profound impact on it. The communication about it does. Isn't it weird? Yeah. But this is what I've been breaking down as far as the credible threat theory is all this stuff, right? How it is that they use this communication and how it is that it actually plays out within the real economy. You're in the conspiracy weeds. It sounds like Barney. Yeah. And the Fed isn't British. Yeah. I don't trust the government to be given control of the money supply. I agree. I don't either. I mean, I'm not happy with the Federal Reserve being in control of it, but I would rather have the Federal Reserve in control of it than stupid congressional members, the members of Congress or the Senate or something. Like, those guys will not make appropriate decisions for it. I guarantee you. They will do whatever it is that they think that they need to do in order to get voted back in again, period. That's it. Like, the only person who I think would be making an appropriate decision based off of logic and reason would be Ron Paul. All right. And he's not there anymore. So outside of that, I just don't have any faith or belief that anybody within Congress or the Senate would do the right job or do it right. They would do it. They would make decisions based on the idea on whether or not they were going to get voted in again. All right. Okay, guys, I have definitely got to call it now. My battery's dying, voice is fading. This was a really fun live stream. I think we broke down a lot of really good information on this. I think the credible threat theory is really becoming very pronounced now. People are starting to recognize it all over the place, and it's like, to me, it is by far the most accurate view of the monetary policy in the Fed right now. So, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Let's do a members-only live stream tomorrow. So we're going to break down Jerome Powell's speech. It's a fairly short one, so it won't take long. But we'll come back out here. I'll set it up for, I'll schedule a members-only live stream. So if you haven't become a member of the channel yet, it's $1 a month. $1 a month, you'll have access to all kinds of member-only live streams that we have done, and you get to join us tomorrow on the member-only live stream where we break down this particular speech given by Jerome Powell talking about, everything that we were talking about again today. But again, listening to this information, internalizing it, hearing it, talking about it over and over again is what gives you the ability to then use this information going into the future, just off of instincts, essentially. Right? Subconscious behavior takes over. All right, you guys are awesome. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.